Chapter 1178. At this moment, most of the Shen family's martial artists had already arrived near Pine Palace. This time, the 13th young master was confident. "Brat, no matter how strong you are, you won't be able to escape." The 13th young master sneered. He had no choice. What happened in the ancient tomb had made him sullen. If he did not vent his anger, it would affect his martial path. "You're that Lin Xian? You don't look like anything special," a handsome youth from the Shen family said with disdain. 11th brother, don't underestimate this brat. Although his cultivation isn't high, his combat strength is strangely strong. Don't be fooled by this brat. The 13th young master gritted his teeth and said. The last time, he had underestimated Lin Xian's cultivation and suffered a loss. However, this time, he would definitely not be fooled again. Elder Qing Yun's face was gloomy. He glared at Lin Xian with undisguised killing intent. However, he still tried to persuade the 13th young master. 13th young master, 11th young master. Our top priority now is to enter Pine Palace. As for this brat, it won't be too late to kill him after we get the treasure. We can't be distracted by this brat. After all, this is a special time. Other than us, there are still forces like the Merry Forest. It wouldn't be long before the other families arrived. Hearing this, the 11th young master nodded. All right, well, do as you say. But after I get the treasure, I'll teach this brat a lesson. Brat, I'll let you live a little longer. The 13th young master snorted coldly. Lin Xian did not care about the Shen family's threat. Before he had broken through, he was already able to escape from the Shen family's hands. Now, not only did he have a breakthrough in his cultivation, he had also condensed a lightning martial soul. His strength had greatly increased. Even if they had more people than before, if he really wanted to leave, these people would not be able to stop him. Therefore, Lin Xian stood on the white jade spiritual boat with his hands behind his back. His eyes swept across the huge city without fear. When he saw that there was a terrifying hole on the huge city wall, he revealed a shocked expression. Needless to say, this hole must have been created by the heavenly netherbird. Just as Lin Xian was surveying his surroundings, a cold snort sounded from afar. Clearly, someone was very dissatisfied with Lin Xian's actions. Lin Xian squinted his eyes and looked in the direction of the voice. Then he saw the people from the Palace of Ares. That cold snort came from Yin Feng of the Palace of War. Yin Feng's injuries had long since healed. However, whenever he thought of what had happened, he would go crazy. He wanted nothing more than to kill Lin Xian. It was all because of Lin Xian's interference that the news of Deep Pine Hall was exposed. Otherwise, with his strength, killing Mary Wood's little fatty would be as easy as flipping his hand. If he had succeeded, the news of Deep Pine Hall would not have spread so quickly. At that time, the Palace of War Gods would be able to enter the Deep Pine Palace before all the other factions knew about it and gain the upper hand. However, all of this was ruined by Lin Xian. Therefore, when Yin Feng saw Lin Xian again, he wanted nothing more than to kill him immediately. However, Lin Xian ignored Yin Feng's killing intent. Previously, he could not defeat Yin Feng. However, now that his cultivation had broken through and his strength had increased, he was no longer afraid of Yin Feng. If Yin Feng really wanted to fight with him, he did not mind letting him know what it meant to be strong. Don't worry, we will kill this kid sooner or later. Right now, Deep Pine Hall is our priority. The mysterious honorable martial artist stopped Yin Feng in the Palace of War Gods. Yin Feng nodded and did not act rashly. However, he looked at Lin Xian and revealed a cold smile. This time, he would not let Lin Xian escape. When the warriors from the other factions saw his expression, their bodies trembled and their faces were filled with fear. Many cultivators even took a few steps back in fear of being targeted by Yin Feng. It could not be helped. If it was an ordinary expert, as long as they did not provoke the other party would not provoke them for no reason. However, Yin Feng was different. He was known as a lunatic and did things without any rules. No one wanted to be targeted by this lunatic for no reason. Therefore, many people avoided him. Among those present, only Lin Xian dared to provoke Yin Feng so openly. At this moment, another powerful group arrived outside the huge city. The leader of the group was a beautiful lady in a purple dress. Morong Qingcheng. Everyone was shocked when they saw the lady, the 13th young master of the Shen clan, and the others also had a look of admiration in their eyes. They could not help it. Morong Qingcheng was simply too beautiful, and had an extraordinary status. She was the little princess of the Morong clan. Whoever could marry her would receive great benefits. However, Morong Qingcheng had high standards. They had never heard of any clan's young master that she liked. Even so, they would not give up. As long as Morong Qingcheng was not married, they would still have a chance. Seeing Morong Qingcheng, even Yin Feng had a solemn look on his face. Although he was known as a lunatic and was feared by many, he did not dare to be careless when facing Morong Qingcheng. Moreover, they had exchanged blows before. The true Phoenix Imperial Jade seal in her hand made him wary. Qingcheng, you're here. Just as Morong Qingcheng landed, a handsome young man walked out of the Shen clan. This young man was dressed in armor and had an extraordinary appearance. Every move he made carried a powerful force. Judging from his aura, he seemed to be even stronger than the 13th young master and the 11th young master. Indeed, this person was the 9th young master of the Shen clan. His strength was above the 13th young master and the 11th young master. Not only that, but the 9th young master's status was also extraordinary. He was the grandson of the Shen clan's great elder. As a sovereign clan, the Shen clan had many elders. However, there was only one great elder. His status and power were not something that ordinary elders could compare to. Therefore, as the grandson of the great elder, the 9th young master's status could be said to be very honorable. Moreover, he was the younger brother of the Shen clan's great elder. The Shen clan's great elder was young Master Qilin, one of the 4 young masters of the Tianwu continent. Young Master Lingfeng of the God of War Palace, young Master Anil of the Merry Forest, and young Master Moonwalker of the Morong clan. They were one of the 4 most powerful people of the younger generation in the Tianwu continent. As the younger brother of young Master Qilin, one could imagine how honorable his status was. At that moment, when the crowd saw the 9th young master walking towards Morong Qingcheng, they were enlightened. Rumor has it that the 9th young master of the Shen clan has been begging Morong Qingcheng. It seems that the rumor is true. Indeed, only someone like the 9th young master of the Shen clan is worthy of Morong Qingcheng. Chapter 1179. Jiu Gongzi, on the other hand, strode toward Morong Qingcheng. He had been courting Morong Qingcheng for a long time, and it was not a secret among all the powerful parties that he liked Morong Qingcheng. Therefore, he had already treated Morong Qingcheng as his woman. He knew that Morong Qingcheng would not think this way, but it was fine as long as he thought this way. With his status and charm, no matter what kind of woman she was, she would not be able to escape from his grasp. Even if it was Morong Qingcheng, she would still be his in the end. Qingcheng, you are here. This place is very dangerous. You should not have come. But don't worry. As long as I am here, I will not let you come to any danger, Jiu Gongzi said with concern as he walked. He even put on a smile that he thought could charm thousands of girls. However, his smile soon froze. Morong Qingcheng was not charmed by his smile. She did not even look at him. The beautiful purple-clothed woman ignored Jiu Gongzi, her beautiful eyes looking straight ahead. There was a white jade spirit boat there, and a young man and woman were standing on it. The surrounding people also noticed this abnormal scene, and then quickly whispered to each other. Jiu Gongzi was stunned on the spot. His handsome face was extremely stiff. Impossible. Why is Qingcheng ignoring me? Is my smile not nice enough? Or am I not concerned enough? Jiu Gongzi did not believe it. He quickly took a deep breath and shouted again, Qingcheng. However, Morong Qingcheng still ignored him. This scene made Jiu Gongzi feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. A bad premonition arose in his heart. Although Morong Qingcheng had not promised him anything before this, they were still on good terms. At the very least, they were still polite on the surface. However, Morong Qingcheng had completely ignored him. She had even ignored him. He could not accept this huge change. He suddenly turned around, and his eyes became unusually sharp. He wanted to see who had attracted Morong Qingcheng. However, when he saw the person behind him, he heaved a sigh of relief. This was because he could see that Morong Qingcheng's gaze was currently on Lin Xian and Wuxia. Ninth young master was not the only one who saw it. The surrounding cultivators had all seen it. Could it be that this Lin Xian duo also stole Morong Qingcheng's things? It can't be. He even dares to offend someone from the Morong family? For a moment, the corners of everyone's mouths twitched, and their expressions were strange. Because of Lin Xian's previous behavior, they all subconsciously thought that Lin Xian must have offended Morong Qingcheng, which was why such a strange phenomenon happened at this moment. Jiu Gongzi's smile returned. He stared at Lin Xian with a cold glint in his eyes. Damned brat! How dare he offend Qingcheng? If you don't want to die, then obediently kneel and kowtow to Qingcheng and apologize. Otherwise, I will let you know how powerful I am. At the end of his words, a terrifying aura rose from Jiu Gongzi's body. Originally, Lin Xian was their family's enemy. However, for the sake of Deep Pine Hall, they did not make a move. But now, Lin Xian actually dared to offend Morong Qingcheng. This was something that Jiu Gongzi could not tolerate. So now, he wanted to make a move against Lin Xian. However, at this moment Morong Qingcheng shouted, "Stop!" Jiu Gongzi's raised hand stopped in midair. He turned his head and smiled. "Qingcheng, don't worry. Dealing with a little thief is just a matter of moving my fingers. It won't take much time. Since this brat dares to offend you, I will make him pay a painful price." Jiu Gongzi was very excited to stand up for Morong Qingcheng. Although 13th young master and the others had suffered at the hands of Lin Xian, Jiu Gongzi was much stronger than 13th young master, so he had absolute confidence in dealing with Lin Xian. However, Morong Qingcheng frowned when she heard Jiu Gongzi's words. When she saw Jiu Gongzi walking forward, she finally could not hold it in anymore. "I told you to stop. What's the relationship between us? Do I need you to stand up for me? Moreover, do you know what's the relationship between him and me? Who told you that I have a grudge against him?" Jiu Gongzi was stunned by the series of questions. Actually, he was not the only one. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. They could not understand how things had turned out like this. What's the relationship between the two of them? Someone did not understand. You don't know? Both of them are disciples of the Immortal Martial Academy. Someone said. It's not that simple. Look at Morong Qingcheng's gaze. It's definitely not as simple as being from the same sect. someone else said. In short, everyone was discussing fervently. Jiao Gongzi's face darkened when he heard these words. He looked at Morong Qingqing again, and realized that there was a different kind of emotion in her eyes. Could it be? Jiao Gongzi's heart sank as a bad premonition rose from the bottom of his heart. His face immediately turned pale. Morong Qingqing's gaze lingered on Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. No one knew what she was thinking. Sensing Morong Qingqing's gaze, Zhao Shui remained expressionless. Lin Xian rubbed his nose helplessly. Just as he was about to explain, Morong Qingqing snorted softly. I'll settle this with you when we get out. She rolled her eyes at Lin Xian fiercely, then led the Morong clan members to the vicinity of the huge city. Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. They had never seen Morong Qingqing act like a little girl. Perhaps only people who were very close to each other could act like this. It seemed that the relationship between the two of them was indeed not ordinary. Everyone had different expressions, but Jiao Gongzi's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He had known Morong Qingqing for many years, but he had never seen Morong Qingqing act so intimately with anyone. Now, however, Morong Qingqing was behaving like this in front of so many people. And that person was not him. He could not tolerate this. Brat, how dare you steal my woman? You must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. I'm going to pull out your tendons and pull out your bones. I'm going to break your bones piece by piece. Jiao Gongzi's face was ferocious as killing intent filled his eyes. He's going crazy. It would be fine if Morong Qingqing was stronger than him. However, Morong Qingqing was clearly a piece of trash who was inferior to him in every way. Morong Qingqing was inferior to him in terms of cultivation, status, and talent. How could such a piece of trash win Morong Qingqing's favor? Jiao Gongzi could not understand. In his opinion, Morong Qingqing must have used some despicable means to bewitch Morong Qingqing. Brat, I want you dead. Jiao Gongzi's killing intent was so intense that it formed a solid light that enveloped the surroundings. The surrounding cultivators trembled when they sensed this killing intent. A trace of fear appeared in their eyes. It seemed that Jiao Gongzi was really angry. Chapter 1180. Ninth Young Lord. At this moment, an elder quickly arrived in front of Ninth Young Lord and blocked his path. Right now, the most important thing is to enter Pine Palace. We'll talk about other things later. Moreover, that Lin Xian is very strange. His cultivation isn't high, but his battle strength is terrifyingly high. What do you mean? Are you suspecting that I can't beat him? Ninth Young Lord's face darkened. That's not what I meant. What I meant was that if you two fight, the surrounding factions won't just stand by and watch. They might attack you. When that happens, we'll be in a very passive position. That brat can't run away anyway. It won't be too late to kill him after we get the treasure. Ninth Young Lord's eyes flickered and he nodded firmly. In that case, we'll do as Elder Qingshan says. Then, he turned his head and stared at Lin Xian. Brat, I'll let you live a little longer. You dare to steal my woman? No one in this world can save you. With that, he snorted and walked back into the Shun clan's group. As Ninth Young Lord returned to the Shun clan's group, the scene quieted down again. Everyone quietly waited for the exploration teams to return. Not long after, several small teams flew out of the hole in the huge city. These people's auras were chaotic, and some of them were charred black. It was obvious that they had encountered some trouble. How is it? Have you investigated thoroughly? Yin Feng stared at the figure from the Palace of Gods of War and asked. At the same time, the Mary Woods elder asked in a deep voice. They had also sent out an exploration team. We've investigated thoroughly. This is indeed Pine Palace. Moreover, it seems that no one has entered. However, although the Heaven Nether Bird destroyed some of it, there are still many powerful restrictions inside. The exploration teams quickly reported their findings to their superiors. The Mary Woods people didn't hide anything, because they knew that Pine Palace wasn't something that they could devour alone. If necessary, they would need to join forces with other factions to break some ancient restrictions. Thus, they shared the information. After everyone received the information, they quickly digested it. At this time, the Palace of Gods of War began to move. Because Pine Palace was filled with danger, they only sent out cultivators at the sixth sky of Venerable Realm and above. These cultivators were all elites of their clans. They were powerful, and should be able to handle the situation inside. Soon, the people from the Palace of Ares entered the cave. The people from Mary Woods did not hesitate, and followed him into the cave. Then the Morong family, the Divine Bird Palace, and other forces entered one after another. However, during this process, Lin Xian didn't see the main force of the Immortal Martial Academy. Although he was surprised, he was not too surprised. Because the Hidden Sky Secret Realm was extremely vast, the treasures inside would definitely not be limited to the Dark Pine Hall. Maybe the students of the Immortal Martial Academy were searching for opportunities in other places. Moreover, the Pine Palace was filled with danger. There was also the ancient ferocious beast, the Heavenly Nether Bird. It was extremely dangerous. Maybe this was one of the reasons why the Immortal Martial Academy didn't come. Actually, it wasn't only the Immortal Martial Academy that didn't come. There were several other major powers that didn't come. Moreover, Lin Xian took a look at the forces that had come here. Not all of their members were present. They must have left some of their members outside to avoid a complete annihilation. Lin Xian also knew that it was extremely dangerous inside. However, he had no other choice. Taking a deep breath, he and Zhao Shui quickly entered the cave. Just as they approached the cave, Lin Xian felt the terrifying aura of the remaining black flames. Although it was only a trace, it was still extremely terrifying. Even a 7th level venerable would have to be careful when dealing with it. If they were not careful, they could be burned. However, Lin Xian was not afraid. Instead, he was somewhat happy. With a wave of his hand, he gathered all the surrounding black flames to his body. When the cultivators behind saw this, their eyelids twitched violently, and they stopped moving. Is this guy crazy? He actually dared to provoke so many black flames. These people looked at Lin Xian's figure and were shocked. They quickly distanced themselves to avoid being dragged down by Lin Xian. He's really courting death. These are the flames left behind by the Heavenly Nether Bird. Its power is extremely terrifying. Although it's just a trace left behind, it's not something that ordinary people can fight against. Many people shook their heads. Indeed, the cultivators from before had all activated their defenses and carefully passed through the black flames. No one dared to provoke them. Even the 7th-level venerables did not dare to do so. However, Lin Xian had actually gathered all the surrounding black flames and attracted them to his body. Wasn't this playing with fire? However, the scene of Lin Xian being burned did not happen. Instead, when the black flames covered Lin Xian's body, they did not burn fiercely. Instead, they became much dimmer. It was as if they had been absorbed. Absorbed? How is this possible? Everyone widened their eyes in disbelief. Someone dares to absorb the heavenly Netherbird's flames? Isn't he courting death? Impossible. This boy must have used some sort of method to extinguish the flames. Everyone was shocked. However, when they wanted to investigate, Lin Xian's figure had already disappeared into the cave. After entering the cave, Lin Xian and Lin Xian ran all the way. The remaining aura of the black flames could be seen everywhere. On the way, Lin Xian quickly gathered the remaining flames together and absorbed them. Although it was very little, he did not let go of a single trace. Other than the remaining black flames on the ground, the entire space was filled with an unusually violent aura. Lin Xian knew that it was left behind by the heavenly Netherbird. Palaces and pavilions appeared in front of them. They all had a faint layer of light on them, as if they were in a fantasy paradise. In the middle of it all, there was a majestic palace that emitted an ancient aura. That should be the Pine Palace. Lin Xian looked ahead and noticed the huge hall at a glance. It was because that place was different from other places, and it had a different aura. Not only him, but everyone else also looked at the huge and majestic palace. Pung! Suddenly, an earth-shattering sound rang out. It reached the 9 heavens and caused the entire space to tremble. Everyone revealed a terrified expression as they looked ahead. In front of the Pine Palace, there was a huge figure. It was a huge demonic beast with black feathers all over its body. There were black flames burning on its body, and it emitted a violent aura. The heavenly Netherbird. The huge figure was the heavenly Netherbird. At this moment, it was waving its huge claws and attacking the Pine Palace. However, there was a huge defensive array around the Pine Palace that resisted the heavenly Netherbird's attack. Everyone was stunned. Even with the heavenly Netherbird's terrifying attack, it still could not break through the defensive array. One could only imagine how terrifying the defensive array was. One had to know that the heavenly Netherbird was an extremely terrifying existence. Even an 8-star demonic beast general could not withstand a single attack from it. Chapter 1181. This was simply too shocking. That's the Big Dipper Formation. It's extremely powerful. Even among the ancient formations, it's one of the strongest. The dark red dragon looked ahead with a serious expression. Even a king couldn't break this formation. I didn't expect it to appear here. What? Even a king couldn't break it? Hearing this, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui were shocked. They didn't expect the formation to be so terrifying. No wonder the heavenly netherbird couldn't break it even after attacking for so long. However, the formation seemed to have angered the heavenly netherbird. It raised its head and let out a cry that tore through the 9 heavens. Black flames rolled around its body and formed a powerful black flame attack that blasted forward. This attack was too terrifying. Merely the aftershock from it was probably not something that an Exalt Realm expert could resist. Then, under everyone's horrified gazes, the black flame slammed into the light barrier. Suddenly, the entire light barrier trembled violently, as if it was about to crack. However, what shocked everyone was that the light barrier didn't crack. Instead, it shone even brighter, forming 7 star-like light spots that quickly connected together. Finally, the 7 stars emitted 7 dazzling rays of light that blasted towards the heavenly netherbird. The light was too terrifying. It wasn't any weaker than a king's attack. The entire void was pierced through, and the ground rolled like waves. The 7 light pillars slammed into the heavenly netherbbird's body. The sound of the collision was like thunder. Everyone quickly sealed their hearing and retreated with pale faces. It was too terrifying. Just the sound alone was enough to make them tremble. If they hadn't sealed their hearing, they wouldn't have been able to withstand it. The heavenly netherbird roared crazily as it was hit by the attack. Its huge body kept shaking. The black flames on its body continued to burn, as if they were the flames of hell, resisting the 7 terrifying light pillars. This attack was too terrifying. It could even penetrate a king, but it was blocked by the heavenly netherbird. Everyone was hiding in the distance. When they saw this scene, they were shocked. It blocked it, as expected of a peerless beast on the heaven leaderboard. It's really powerful. Lin Xian was also shocked. This heavenly netherbird was too terrifying. All of them combined couldn't even withstand a single blow from it. However, even though it wasn't pierced by the light beam, the heavenly netherbird seemed to have been injured. Thus, it attacked the defensive formation even more ferociously. This kind of demonic beast is an invincible existence under the king level. No one can withstand a single attack from it. An elder of Merry Woods said with a serious expression. What's even more terrifying is that the defensive formation can withstand so many attacks from the heavenly netherbird. The elder of the Morong family laughed bitterly. If you want us to break it, I'm afraid we won't be able to do it. However, the people from the Palace of Gods of War were extremely excited. It looks like we wouldn't have been able to break the array. But with the heavenly netherbird leading the charge, it's great. That's right. When the formation is broken, we can sneak in quietly. We won't have to worry about not being able to get any treasures. The disciples of the Palace of Gods of War were excited. In fact, all of them had benefited from the heavenly netherbird. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to find the core area so easily. Moreover, they wouldn't have been able to pass through the huge city so easily. Thus, from the current situation, it seemed that these people had benefited from following the heavenly netherbird. With their previous experience, they were looking forward to the heavenly netherbird's next move. In front of them, although the Big Dipper array was terrifying, under the heavenly netherbird's ferocious attacks, it began to tremble violently. There were even cracks appearing in some places. This scene made the eyes of the people from the various major forces light up, and their expressions became excited. Before this, they had no way of breaking the formation. However, now that there were cracks on the terrifying defensive formation, this was an opportunity for them. If they used the cracks, they might be able to find a flaw. If they could break the formation, they would be able to enter. At that time, they would be able to explore the mysterious Dark Pine Palace. Thus many factions began to move. Of course, they couldn't go straight for the heavenly netherbird. Instead, they circled to the furthest place from the heavenly netherbird. Moreover, these cultivators all used their own methods and carefully advanced. afraid of being discovered by the heavenly netherbird. Luckily, the heavenly netherbird's ferocious attacks on the Big Dipper array caused the entire space to be filled with light. The spiritual energy was extremely chaotic, which gave them the best conditions to advance. They carefully advanced and quickly approached the formation. However, the Big Dipper array was an ancient formation after all. It was extremely powerful and was set up by a peerless expert. Although cracks had appeared under the heavenly netherbird's attacks, the formation seemed to be able to repair itself. The cracks only existed for a short period of time before returning to normal. When the heavenly serene bird attacked again, the cracks would reappear. Moreover, the cracks would only appear for a short period of time. However, the people from the various factions did not give up. After all, they had some understanding of the remote sky secret realm. Thus, they had array masters in their teams. At this moment they came in handy. After the research of these array masters, they found that the safest way to enter was through the cracks. If they tried to force their way in from other places, there would be a certain amount of danger. Cultivators below the king level would not be able to resist that kind of danger. Thus, for a time, the various factions focused their attention on the cracks. However, the cracks were random, thus no one knew where the cracks would appear. Moreover, the cracks only existed for a short period of time. Only by seizing the opportunity could they enter. However, after everyone's research, they found that there was a high chance that cracks would appear again. Thus, for a time, everyone began to fight for positions. The Palace of War was very domineering. They directly occupied the place with the highest probability of cracks appearing. Other cultivators, such as the Merry Woods and the Divine Bird Palace, also quickly seized positions. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui led the dark red divine dragon and quickly went forward. In terms of array mastery, no one here could compare to the dark red divine dragon. Thus, they quickly arrived near the formation. However, because they had fewer people, they did not get a good position. However, they were not too worried. After all, there were many cracks. It was only a matter of time before they entered. However, not long after, Lin Xian furrowed his brows. This was because he found that the frequency of cracks appearing decreased after he arrived near the formation. Moreover, the cracks only existed for a short period of time. It was not enough time for people to enter. Ruffian Dragon, is there a way to break this formation? Lin Xian asked from the side. It's very difficult to break the formation. However, it's possible to let 1 or 2 people enter. Chapter 1182. It wasn't wrong at all. It was extremely difficult to break the Big Dipper array. After all, the heavenly netherbird was such a terrifying existence. Yet it couldn't break through even after attacking for so long. One could only imagine how terrifying the Big Dipper array was. Although the Crimson God Dragon was very powerful in formations, it couldn't break through the Big Dipper array in such a short amount of time. However, the heavenly netherbird's attacks had already caused flaws to appear in the array. As long as they took advantage of these flaws, they would be able to send people in. This might be impossible for other formation masters, but the Crimson God Dragon could do it. Then hurry up, Lin Xian urged. He had a bad premonition, but he wasn't sure what it was. The Crimson God Dragon nodded and waved its claws, touching the Big Dipper array. Suddenly, the Big Dipper array rippled and released a 5-colored light. The Crimson God Dragon quickly studied it. However, as time passed, Lin Xian's brows furrowed even tighter. Not only him, but Zhao Shui also furrowed her brows. You noticed it too? Lin Xian asked in a deep voice. Ever since we arrived, the frequency of the cracks appearing has been very small. Until now, it hasn't appeared for a long time. Zhao Shui furrowed her brows as she spoke. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui weren't the only ones. Gradually, the martial artists from the other forces began to realize what was happening. Soon, everyone began to panic. If there weren't any cracks, they wouldn't be able to enter. Therefore, they were very anxious. The sound of the attacks has decreased. The Merry Forest's elder furrowed his brows. Yeah, the chaotic spiritual energy in the sky has also disappeared. The Morong clan's people also had a serious expression. The people from the Palace of Gods of War seemed to have thought of something and quickly looked forward. Then their expressions greatly changed. Heavens, the heavenly netherbird disappeared. What disappeared? Everyone was stunned. How could the heavenly netherbird disappear? Did it already enter? The heavenly netherbird's disappearance caused everyone to panic. They couldn't understand how such a huge monster could disappear. Could he have entered a formation? Someone guessed. Hearing this, many people despaired. If the heavenly serene bird really entered the array, then they would have no chance. However, some other people quickly shook their heads, especially those great array masters. If the heavenly netherbird had entered the formation, it would have definitely affected it, but we didn't notice it at all. Hearing the words of these array masters, the surrounding martial artists relaxed. This was because these array masters were the elites of their families. They were very accomplished in the field of array formations. It could be said that their words were the truth. Therefore, when everyone heard the words of these array masters, they all relaxed. Luckily, as long as the heavenly netherbird didn't enter, everything would be easy. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. But where did it go? Everyone was puzzled. However, at this moment, a shadow cast down and enveloped everyone. Then a cold voice sounded. "Foolish humans, what are you looking for?" Hearing this voice, everyone's expression changed, and then they subconsciously raised their heads. In the end, they saw a scene that made them despair. Above their heads, there was an enormous head. It was incomparably malevolent, and its ice-cold eyes were staring at them. The heavenly netherbird. Many people's faces were pale and filled with fear. They didn't expect the heavenly netherbird to come to their side without them noticing. Even Lin Xian was shocked. This was because before this, he didn't sense the aura of the other party at all. This was too inconceivable. One had to know that the heavenly netherbird's body emitted a scorching and violent aura. But it was able to disappear without a trace in an instant. It was able to hide from everyone's soul detection. As expected of an ancient demonic beast, this method was terrifying. Not good. Run. More than a dozen martial artists were scared out of their wits and immediately fled into the distance. However, the heavenly netherbird snorted coldly. The black flames on its body quickly surged out and enveloped the martial artists in an instant. Then, the martial artists let out tragic cries and were burned to ashes by the black flames. Seeing this scene, everyone's scalps went numb and their pupils constricted. This was because there were 7th-level honorables among those people. However, they couldn't even block a single strand of black flames. This was too frightening. The heavenly netherbird didn't even bat an eyelid as it dealt with dozens of martial artists. Then it snorted coldly again. The black flames on its body bloomed, and a terrifying and violent aura instantly enveloped everyone. Feeling this aura, everyone's faces were filled with despair. Their bodies trembled, and those who were weaker were pressed to the ground. Lin Xian felt this aura, and his face changed greatly. In the next moment, the great dragon sword soul in his body was activated, and was about to let out a dragon's roar. Fortunately, he discovered it quickly, and quickly controlled the great dragon sword soul, so that it didn't let out any strange sounds. The great dragon sword soul could indeed eliminate this terrifying aura, but that would also expose him to the heavenly netherbird. With his current strength, he was far from being able to contend with the other party. This was why he controlled the great dragon sword soul. Now what he needed to do was to not attract the heavenly netherbirds' attention. Otherwise, if he was noticed by the other party, he wouldn't be able to escape. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with deep despair. They didn't think that the heavenly netherbird would find them so quickly. Furthermore, they realized that the other party's aura wasn't something that they could contend with. Are we really going to die here? The young prodigies were filled with despair, and their eyes were filled with unwillingness. Lowly insects, did you really think that I didn't notice your existence? You still wanted to use me to enter the dark pine hall? What a joke! The heavenly netherbird's cold voice resounded. Hearing this voice, the martial artists were shocked. At the same time, their eyes were filled with boundless regret. It turned out that their actions had already been discovered by the other party. The reason why it didn't kill them was probably because they were just ants in the eyes of the heavenly netherbird. It was laughable that they wanted to use the heavenly netherbird's power to enter the dark pine hall. Now that they thought about it, they were really courting death. It was likely that their actions had caused the heavenly netherbird's dissatisfaction, resulting in this scene. Thinking about this, the martial artist's intestines turned green with regret. If they knew about this, they wouldn't have dared to come here even if they were beaten to death. At this moment, under the heavenly netherbird's cold gaze, everyone's hearts trembled. Lin Xian quickly sent a voice transmission to the dark red divine dragon. Ruffian dragon, are you done? Soon. Give me a little more time, and you'll be able to enter. The dark red divine dragon replied in a deep voice. Chapter 1183. He was from the Divine Dragon clan, and his entire body was filled with treasures. However, he didn't have enough strength to fight against the heavenly netherbird. Therefore, he was more anxious than anyone else. Luckily, the heavenly netherbird was only staring at those people and didn't notice him. On the other hand, the other cultivators were driven crazy by the heavenly netherbird. Its aura was too terrifying, and it could take their lives at any moment. In the end, a few cultivators couldn't withstand the pressure and went crazy in despair. With a roar, a few of them went crazy. They released their spiritual energy and ran away. They couldn't take it anymore. The aura was too terrifying. Instead of struggling in despair, they might as well use all their strength to run away. Perhaps they would have a chance of survival. That was the thought of the few people who were running away. However, just as they ran away, they were burned to ashes by a black flame. In the end, nothing was left. No! The other cultivators roared crazily. They could only watch as their companions were killed, but they couldn't do anything. This feeling was too despairing. Lowly insects. The heavenly netherbird killed a few humans with a wave of its hand, but it didn't care at all. Its cold eyes scanned the crowd below. Everyone who was swept by its gaze trembled and quickly lowered their heads. Lin Xian's face was also gloomy. The current situation was too dangerous. No one knew when the heavenly netherbird would attack. Who would it attack? To everyone, this was an extremely torturous process. However, at this moment, the dark red divine dragon sent over a piece of good news. I'm ready. We can go in. Hearing this, Lin Xian's heart trembled. However, he suppressed the joy in his heart and didn't show it on his face. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he missed it, he wouldn't have another chance. Now that Zhao Shui and Ruffian Dragon were by his side, they could go in with him. However, Morong Qingqing was a bit far from him. He wanted to send a message to take Morong Qingqing with him. However, before he could send a message, the heavenly netherbird suddenly turned its head and coldly stared at him. Lin Xian's hair stood on end after being stared at by the heavenly netherbird. A huge pressure enveloped him, as if it was going to crush him. Not good, let's go. The dark red godly dragon also felt his scalp tingle. He didn't expect the heavenly netherbird to be so sharp that it could discover their intentions in an instant. In the next moment, he no longer hesitated and quickly moved the formation. Immediately, 3 rays of light enveloped Lin Xian and the others. You 3 ants want to escape from me? How laughable. The heavenly serene bird showed a look of disdain. Then it raised its huge claws and clawed forward. Suddenly, the empty palace cracked like a mirror, and countless black cracks appeared. In an instant it enveloped Lin Xian and the other 2. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Morong Qingqing's expression also changed. She didn't expect the heavenly netherbird to attack Lin Xian. In the next moment, she raised her jade-like hand and was about to strike with the true Phoenix Imperial Jade Seal. However, he was held down by the silver-haired granny. Miss, it's useless. Even if you do something, you won't be able to save them. The silver-haired granny quickly stopped her. Indeed, the heavenly netherbird was too terrifying. Even if a king came, he might not be able to subdue it, let alone people like them. Even if Morong Qingqing did something, she wouldn't be able to do any harm. Instead, she might expose herself and draw the heavenly netherbirds' anger to the Morong family. On the other side, the people from the Palace of Gods of War and the Palace of Divine Birds were ecstatic. This was because they had suffered a lot at the hands of Lin Xian. Everyone hated Lin Xian very much, but they couldn't catch him. Now the heavenly netherbird had killed Lin Xian. This was great news for them. No matter how strange this kid was, he wouldn't have any chance of escaping from the heavenly netherbird. The 9th young master of the Shen family also sneered. Kid, you dared to steal my woman. Now you know what retribution is. Go to hell. Everyone thought that Lin Xian was dead for sure. There was no way he could survive. However, under the giant claw, 3 rays of light quickly merged into the Big Dipper formation. Then with a swoosh, the 3 of them disappeared. What? This is impossible. They disappeared. How is this possible? Everyone's eyes widened, as if they had seen a ghost. This was because they realized that Lin Xian and the other 2 had disappeared under the heavenly netherbirds' giant claw. They weren't burned to ashes by the black flames. Instead, they merged into the formation. That kid entered the formation. How is this possible? Everyone's mind went blank. They couldn't believe that Lin Xian could enter the formation. One had to know that even the terrifying heavenly netherbird couldn't do anything against the Big Dipper formation. How could a kid at the 6th sky of martial honor enter it in an instant? The heavenly netherbird was also stunned. Then it became angry. It didn't think that 3 little insects could escape from its hands. What made it even angrier was that they seemed to have entered the Big Dipper formation. That damned formation. Even it couldn't break it. However, 3 ants could enter it. It couldn't believe it. The heavenly netherbird snorted, and its giant claw viciously clawed forward. Bang! The giant black claw was covered in black flames. It quickly bombarded the light screen, causing an earth-shattering roar. Endless waves of spiritual energy rushed forward like a tsunami. The void trembled, and the formation roared. Although the heavenly netherbird was furious, it still couldn't break the formation. Not only that, but the surrounding space had also been sliced into countless cracks, making it impossible for anyone to hide. This also meant that the disappearance of Lin Xian's team of 3 was not due to some invisibility technique. Instead, they had truly disappeared. Damn it, how is this possible? This time, it was the heavenly netherbbird's turn to lose its calm. Its body was covered in black flames. It was as if it was angry and wanted to burn the entire space. In the next moment, it suddenly turned around and stared at the remaining cultivators. Its cold voice sounded again. Damned insects! How dare you play tricks in front of me? I think you don't want to live anymore." Then it snorted and waved its giant claw. Bang! Bang! The void cracked and 3 terrifying black claw shadows quickly fell from the sky. Suddenly, dozens of cultivators were smashed into meat paste. Among them, the cultivators from the Palace of Ares, the Shun family, and the Divine Bird Palace were the closest. Therefore, the unlucky ones were the cultivators from these 3 families. It was funny that they thought that Lin Xian would be killed by the heavenly netherbird. They didn't expect that they would be the unlucky ones in the end. The remaining cultivators trembled, and their eyes were filled with despair. Terrifying. Too terrifying. In the face of this attack, they couldn't fight back at all. At the same time, they were shocked because they couldn't understand how Lin Xian got in. After venting its anger, the heavenly netherbird calmed down again. Then its cold eyes locked onto the crowd again. Chapter 1184. Being stared at by the heavenly serene bird's cold eyes. Everyone was scared and desperate. However, after a while, they realized that the heavenly serene bird did not attack them. This made them feel relieved, but at the same time confused. With the heavenly serene bird's cruel personality, it would not let them go. Since it did not attack them, it could only mean one thing. They were still useful. Other than that, they could not think of a reason why the heavenly serene bird did not attack them. Honorable heavenly serene bird, what do you need us to do? At this time, an elder of the Divine Bird Palace stood up and asked in a respectful tone. To be honest, no one wanted to die, especially when facing such a terrifying existence like the heavenly serene bird. Even if they were being used, they were willing to do so. The heavenly serene bird's huge eyes turned and stared at the elder of the Divine Bird Palace. Then its cold voice sounded again. You are smart. You know what I mean. Yes, I do need you to do something. The heavenly serene bird looked at the elder and said, So it is the descendant of the 3 crimson blood birds. I did not expect to meet you here. Hearing this, the people of the Divine Bird Palace were excited. The elder asked again, Does Lord Heavenly Serene Bird know our ancestors? Looking at his expression, he could not wait to become relatives with the heavenly serene bird, so that he would not have to die. They had met once. The heavenly serene bird said in a deep voice, Follow me and maybe I will spare your lives. Otherwise, even if you are the descendant of an old friend, I will not be merciful." At the end of the sentence, the atmosphere became heavy again. The whole space seemed to be frozen. "If there's anything you need, please tell us. We, the Divine Bird Palace, will do our best." After that, the elder of the Divine Bird Palace knelt down. Then, all the warriors of the Divine Bird Palace knelt down in front of the heavenly serene bird. When the other warriors saw this scene, their faces changed. Although they did not kneel down like the Divine Bird Palace, they quickly asked. Seeing that everyone had surrendered, the heavenly serene bird nodded with satisfaction and said, "My request is very simple. As long as you do it seriously, you will be able to do it. First, enter the Pine Palace, find the formation room and destroy it. Second, find the key to remove the star chains on my body. As for how to enter the Pine Palace, you do not need to worry. I will send you in." Hearing this, the surrounding warriors were shocked. They didn't think that they would be sent to Deep Pine Hall to complete a mission. It seemed that the heavenly Netherbird couldn't enter the Pine Palace. Moreover, there should be a restriction binding it, which was the star chain. However, what made them happy was that they were able to enter the Deep Pine Palace. However, they were worried that the heavenly Netherbird's request wouldn't be easy. This array formation control room was definitely the most important part of Deep Pine Hall. They might not be able to enter, but they also had to find the key to lift the restrictions placed on the other party. If the restriction on the other party's body was broken, then the Heaven Netherbird would have nothing to worry about. If they destroyed the formation, then there would be nothing in the entire remote sky secret realm that could trap them. At that time, their lives would no longer be in his hands. Everything would be in the hands of the heavenly Netherbird. However, if they could find the key to unlock the star chains, they might be able to take the initiative and negotiate with the heavenly Netherbird again. Thinking of this, everyone's hearts burned with passion because they finally found the hope of survival. "Don't worry, sir. We will definitely fulfill your request," the warrior of Divine Bird Palace said respectfully. The others also nodded in agreement. However, the heavenly Netherbird sneered. "Although you agreed very quickly, I know that you humans are naturally cunning. If I let you in like this, I won't be at ease." What? Everyone's hearts thumped as a bad premonition arose in their hearts. Sure enough, the heavenly Netherbird continued, "I will plant a black lotus mark on each of you. As long as you do as I say and complete the task, you will not be in any danger. However, if you dare to disobey my order, the black lotus in your body will instantly turn into black flames and burn you to ashes." Everyone's faces turned pale as a touch of despair appeared in their eyes. It seemed that working for the heavenly Netherbird wasn't going to be easy. Not to mention the two things that were hard to find. The flames in their bodies were like a ticking time bomb that could explode at any time. "What? You don't want to?" The heavenly Netherbird sneered when it saw everyone's expression. "How could that be? Sir, please do as you wish." The people of Divine Bird Palace didn't dare to resist as they knelt on the ground and said respectfully. Seeing that the people of Divine Bird Palace had spoken, the other warriors had no choice but to bite the bullet and agree. After all, the heavenly Netherbird was extremely cruel and could kill people in the blink of an eye. They didn't want to become cannon fodder for the heavenly Netherbirds' anger. Seeing that no one dared to resist, the heavenly Netherbird smiled with satisfaction. Then, the black flames on its body rose and turned into countless rays of black light that quickly merged into each warrior's body. Suddenly, the warriors' bodies shook as they felt a black flame appear in their bodies. A black lotus mark appeared on the back of their necks. Although the flame was small, everyone could feel the terrifying energy it contained. It could easily burn all the warriors below the king level into ashes. The others were successfully planted with the mark, but Morong Qingcheng's face turned pale. Her body emitted a huge light, as if she wanted to resist. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. The people of the Morong family's faces changed greatly. They couldn't understand why Morong Qingcheng dared to resist in front of everyone. Morong Qingcheng smiled bitterly as well. It was not that she was resisting, but that she could not control herself. It was the power of the bloodline inside her body that caused this phenomenon. Even the heavenly netherbird was stunned. Its huge eyes stared at Morong Qingcheng. There seems to be a trace of the phoenix bloodline in her bloodline. No wonder she could resist my black lotus mark. The heavenly netherbird was very surprised, but it didn't seem to be angry. This made the people of the Morong family a little relieved. But in the next moment, their hearts were in their throats again, because the heavenly netherbird attacked again. It shot out a few black flames, and all of them entered Morong Qingcheng's body. Suddenly, the five-colored light on her body was suppressed and finally disappeared into the air. A black lotus mark also appeared on the back of her fair neck. I didn't expect to meet a descendant of the three-headed crimson blood bird, and a warrior with the phoenix bloodline. It seems that you people are stronger than I thought. I think you can do the two things I asked you to do. Chapter 1185. Boundless black flames condensed and formed a black blade that quickly slashed at the Big Dipper Formation's light screen. This attack was extremely powerful, far more powerful than before. It directly slashed a 2-meter-long crack in the Big Dipper Formation's light screen. This crack was negligible to the heavenly netherbbird's huge body, but it was enough for these
If we
human
don't do as
cultivators.
he says,
Why
once
aren't
the
you
time
going
is
in?
up,
At
the
this
black
moment,
flames in our
the
bodies
heavenly
will burn.
netherbird shouted.
At that time,
The
we won't
surrounding
be able to
cultivators
escape.
trembled.
Many
And
warriors
without any
shook
delay,
their heads inside.
They quickly entered
Maybe
the
we
crack.
can find the key to
Only
the
when
star
all the
chains,
cultivators
and
had
then
entered did the
negotiate
crack
with the
gradually
heavenly
close
netherbird.
up.
A
Finally,
warrior said
it
in
was
a
as
deep
good
voice.
as new. Hearing
Whoosh,
this,
whoosh,
everyone's eyes
whoosh.
lit up and they
Countless
nodded because
figures
this was
appeared in the
indeed a good
formation.
idea.
Although
However,
they had
just
entered the
as they
formation,
smiled,
they
the
could
warrior
still
who
feel the
suggested this
terrifying
idea
pressure
suddenly
from the
burst
heavenly
into
netherbird
flames.
outside the
The
formation.
black flames instantly
Not only
covered
that,
the warrior,
but a voice
in the
sounded
blink
in
of an
their
eye.
hearts.
The warrior
Then,
was
following
burned
the
clean
voice,
and no
they
longer
quickly
existed.
turned around and
Seeing
looked
this
behind
scene,
them.
everyone was
Suddenly,
stunned.
Something
It was as
similar
if they
to
were
a map
shrouded by a
appeared in the
huge
light
fear,
screen
and
between
their
the
bodies
heavenly
couldn't
netherbird
stop trembling.
and these people.
It's burning.
This is the topographic
the black
map
flames
of
in
the
our bodies
entire
are
Pine
burning.
Palace.
Someone
You must
said in a
remember it
trembling
clearly.
voice.
The map
This
only
is
existed
impossible.
for a short
We
time.
just came in and did
As the
nothing.
heavenly netherbbird's
Also, the
voice
time limit
disappeared.
is still very
The map
long.
also
How
disappeared.
could it burn for no
However,
reason? All of them
Everyone
were
was terrified and couldn't understand,
so their memories weren't
however,
bad at all.
They didn't
So
know
they
that
were able to
outside the
instantly
defensive
firmly
array,
remember the map.
the heavenly Netherbird
When the map
was staring at them with cold
the black
eyes.
lotus mark on their bodies no
a group
longer
of ants
shone.
trying to control
Not only
me.
that,
How
the
ridiculous.
pressure from the heavenly
It turned out
Netherbird
that the
outside
heavenly
formation
Netherbird was
seemed to have
monitoring their
weakened.
every move,
Feeling this change,
and could even hear their
everyone let out a
conversation
sigh of
clearly.
relief.
However,
After that,
the people
they
inside
began
the
to
array
quickly
were
gather
completely
according
unaware
to
of
their
this.
respective forces.
At this time,
At this
the dark
moment,
red divine
two
dragon
figures
opened
rushed
his
over
mouth.
from afar.
Stop
One of them
talking.
quickly
The
shouted,
heavenly Netherbird
"Ching
can
Ching,
hear
are you
your
all
words."
right?
That
Seeing
guy
this
just
figure,
spoke rudely and
everyone was
naturally
shocked.
angered the heavenly
However,
Netherbird.
Morong Ching
That's
Ching
why he
smiled
ended up
sweetly.
like this. This was
What?
because these two
He can hear
figures
our
were Lin
conversation
Xian
and Zhao Shuai.
After hearing
The one
the dark
who asked
red
was
divine
Lin
dragon's
Xian.
words,
I'm fine.
everyone was shocked.
It was scary but not
However,
dangerous.
they soon understood.
Morong Ching
This was
Ching
because
smiled.
there was a black
At
lotus
this moment,
mark on
a
each of
cold
their
snort
bodies.
sounded.
This thing was
Brat,
extremely
you dared
strange.
to play tricks in front
Perhaps
of
the heavenly Netherbird
could
hear their
You're definitely
conversation
dead this
through
time.
this mark. Once we get
Why
out
don't
of
we
here,
use our divine
Lord
sense
Heavenly
to communicate?
Netherbird will definitely
Someone
burn you
suggested,
to ashes.
Don't waste
The
your
people
energy.
of Divine Bird
Nothing
Palace
you do
sneered.
can escape
The
the
ninth
heavenly
young master
Netherbird
of the Shen
surveillance.
family stared
So,
at Lin
I
Xian
advise
with
you to
murderous
stay here
intent in his
obediently.
eyes.
The dark
The
red
others
divine
had
dragon
strange
said
expressions
coldly,
on their faces
because he was once in
they still
existence
couldn't
above the
figure
king
out
realm.
how Lin Xian
He
had
knows
gotten
the
in.
methods of those
Hearing
people very
Shirshin
well.
Nyagong's threat,
The methods of those
Lin
peerless
Xian snorted
figures
coldly.
were definitely not
A bunch
something
of
that
idiots.
these sovereigns
How
could
dare you
understand.
laugh at me?
Hearing
Do you
this,
really think
everyone's
that the heavenly
faces turned
Netherbird
ugly.
will let you go
It was
after
as
you
if they
help
were
him?
being watched
Hearing
and
this,
couldn't do
everyone's
anything to
heart
threaten
thumped.
the heavenly
Yes,
Netherbird.
with the
In
heavenly
other words,
Netherbird's cruel
their lives were
personality,
firmly in the
how
hands
could it
of the
let them
heavenly
go?
Netherbird.
Perhaps the
From the
heavenly
conversation,
Netherbird would kill
Lin
them
Xian
after
also
they
knew the
finished their
goals of
mission.
these people.
The faces
First,
of the
they
people
wanted
of
to
the
find the
Divine
array
Bird Palace
that
also
could control
became
the
very
array.
ugly.
Second,
They were also
they wanted to
confused by
find
this
the key to
question,
the heavenly
but they didn't
Netherbirds
want to
astral
see Lin
chains.
Xian's proud
After
expression.
hearing this,
So
Lin
they said
Xian's eyes
coldly,
flashed.
No matter what, Lord Heavenly
Previously,
Netherbird
he and Zhao
is
Shuai
still
had
a
entered
great figure
earlier,
that
so
has
they weren't
surpassed
very
the king
clear
realm.
about what was
The
happening
words of such a
outside.
person can definitely be trusted. As long as we help him complete his mission, he will definitely let us go. Lord, Lin Xian looked at the people of the Divine Bird Palace with disdain. I really don't know if you are a human or a monster. How dare you call a peerless monster Lord? If it was a human expert, maybe I could believe it. But for a monster, I really can't find any reason to believe it. Lin Xian said coldly. Hearing this, everyone hesitated. Are we really going to help the heavenly Netherbird complete his mission? But what can we do if we don't complete the mission? Our time is limited, and the heavenly Netherbird has set up a seal. Chapter 1186. However, it seemed that even though the heavenly netherbird was terrifying, it wouldn't be able to enter the formation for the time being. Moreover, there seemed to be a powerful restriction on its body. That was why they were looking for the key. Originally, Lin Xian didn't have any way to deal with the powerful heavenly netherbird, let alone obtain the black flames on its body. However, it seemed that it wasn't impossible. As long as they could find the key to the astral chains, they might have a chance with the help of the dark red dragon. Lin Xian didn't want to kill the heavenly netherbird because he knew that even if he found the key, he wouldn't be able to kill it. His goal was the black flames on its body and the essence blood in its body. These were the two things that both he and the dark red dragon wanted. Therefore, it seemed that they had to find the key to the astral chains before anyone else. Moreover, he definitely wouldn't let anyone destroy the formation's control room. However, there was one more thing that he needed to do, and that was to save Morong Qingqing. Ruffian dragon, is there any way to remove the black flames from Qingqing's body? Lin Xian asked. Because the heavenly netherbird hadn't planted a black lotus mark on him, he wasn't worried that the heavenly netherbird would listen in on their conversation. In my current state, it won't be easy to remove the black flames. Moreover, the heavenly netherbird might discover it during the process. If it explodes, we won't be able to do anything. However, I can use some methods to temporarily cut off the connection between the heavenly netherbird and Morong Qingqing's black flames. Then, I'll slowly research how to remove it, the dark red dragon replied. Alright, let's do that for now. Afterwards, Lin Xian pulled Morong Qingqing to his side, and had the dark red dragon set up a formation in her body to temporarily suppress the black lotus mark. This scene caused everyone's hearts to tremble, as they looked at Lin Xian with fiery gazes. They knew that if they could suppress the mark, it would mean that they would be safe for a while. However, Lin Xian did not care about them at all. Even among the people from the Morong family, he only saved Morong Qingqing. Firstly, he had a special relationship with Morong Qingqing, so of course he had to save her. Moreover, he was not familiar with the others, so there was no need for him to do anything. Furthermore, suppressing black flame was not an easy task. With the dark red divine dragon's current cultivation, suppressing one of them was already a feat. Therefore, for the sake of the dark red divine dragon's stamina, Lin Xian did not let him save anyone else. However, although he set up a formation for Morong Qingqing, Lin Xian still didn't let Morong Qingqing follow him. Instead, he allowed her to return to the Morong family. He knew that it would be safer for her to stay in the Morong family than it would be for her to stay by his side. The next step was to explore Pine Palace. Lin Xian took a deep breath and flew forward with Zhao Shui. Let's go too, Morong Qingqing said in a deep voice. Then, she led the people from the Morong family and set off. After that, the warriors from the other forces set off. The dark red divine dragon was the core area of the remote sky secret realm. There were definitely many treasures inside. If they could obtain one or two of them, it would definitely increase their strength greatly. Although they would not be able to fight against the heavenly netherbird, they would at least be able to protect themselves. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui took the lead and quickly passed through. Soon, Lin Xian's eyes lit up, and he quickly flew to the side. What a rich spiritual energy! He stopped in front of a small purple tree. Wuji the snow-white monkey seemed to have smelled a fragrance, and immediately flew out of the demonic beast pouch. It looked at the small purple tree in front of it, and squinted its eyes. Good stuff. This is a purple spirit grape. The dark red divine dragon was also drooling. However, Lin Xian and Zhao Shui were much more careful, because they knew that there would definitely be danger in the vicinity of these natural treasures. It would either be a powerful restriction array, or a powerful demonic beast. Therefore, the two of them did not make a move, and quickly looked around. You two don't look. Hurry up and pick them. The dark red divine dragon roared, and quickly ran forward. The dragon waved its claws, and covered the purple grapes. However, in the next moment it grabbed nothing. Wuji the snow-white monkey's body flashed, and picked all the purple grapes. Then it quickly ate them. Damn monkey. You're so fast. Give me some. The dark red divine dragon began to fight with the snow-white monkey. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui were surprised because they realized that there was no danger in the process of Little White picking the grapes. Could it be that we're overthinking things? Lin Xian asked suspiciously. Maybe. Zhao Shui's mouth twitched slightly. The Snow White monkey did not care about that. It waved its furry claws and quickly distributed some purple spirit grapes to Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. It seems that we really thought too much. Try it. Lin Xian said with a smile. Then he put a purple spirit fruit into his mouth. As soon as the spirit fruit entered his mouth, it turned into pure spirit energy and quickly flowed through his body. What pure spiritual power! As expected of the treasures of Pine Palace. It's extraordinary. Lin Xian's eyes lit up. That fingernail-sized purple spirit grape was equivalent to 2 to 3 months of hard work. Needless to say, it was definitely good stuff. At the side, Zhao Shui ate one and smiled. Then, she used her void sky eyes and quickly scanned the surroundings. In the next moment she was shocked. There were flame fruits, qilin grass, half-moon fruits. One after another strange spiritual fruits appeared in his field of vision. Moreover, there were no powerful array formations or restrictions near those spiritual fruits, nor were there any powerful demonic beasts guarding them. You two don't have to be too surprised. Although these spirit fruits are very precious in the outside world, they are probably just ordinary fruit trees in Pine Palace. The dark red divine dragon explained as it flew forward. The Snow White monkey was even faster. It turned into a bolt of white lightning and shuttled through the orchard. As expected of an ancient powerhouse, such good spirit fruits are just ordinary fruit trees here. Lin Xian took a deep breath and flew forward with Zhao Shui. Since there were no spirit arrays or restrictions, they did not hold back and quickly picked the spirit fruits. Just as Lin Xian and Zhao Shui entered the orchard, the other cultivators behind them arrived. When they saw the spirit fruits on the ground, their eyes lit up. Don't be impulsive. Be careful. An elder stopped a few young cultivators who were about to rush over. Then he sternly lectured them. Young people, don't be impulsive. There must be powerful spirit arrays, or demonic beasts near these spirit treasures. You must be careful. Don't be reckless. Otherwise, it's a small matter if you don't get the spirit fruits. If you lose your life, the losses will outweigh the gains. The elder was very serious as he educated his subordinates. The other cultivators also nodded. Chapter 1187. Everyone, let's work together. The group carefully scouted the surroundings and slowly approached the orchard. At this moment, a rustling sound came from the orchard. It sounded like something was crawling. There's movement. Many people focused their attention and stared straight ahead. The young warriors were also nervous. Fortunately, they had the guidance of the elders. Otherwise, they might have become monsters' lunch if they had rashly gone forward. Those martial artists also had lingering fear on their faces, and they were very grateful to the elders who stopped them. However, the next moment, the young warriors were all stunned. Their eyes widened, as if they could not believe what they saw. This was because what was walking towards Guilinli was not a powerful demonic beast, but a long dark red snake. Hey, isn't that Lin Xian's pet? Why is it here? Yeah, there should be a powerful restriction array here. Why is it fine? Did they break it? The group of people was extremely puzzled. Even those of the older generation were stunned. Damn you, you're the snake. Your whole family are snakes. The dark red dragon was so angry that it stomped its feet and took a bite of the Kirin fruit in its hand. What is it eating? Is it a supreme grade spiritual fruit? The crowd ignored the dark red dragon's curses and stared at the spiritual fruit in its hand. That's right. Judging from its appearance and aura, it's definitely a supreme grade spiritual fruit. The group was excited and wanted to pounce on it immediately. However, they had just been lectured by the elders and did not dare to move forward rashly. There must be a powerful restriction array in a place with such a supreme grade spiritual fruit. Damn it, how did they get in? Could it be that they broke the array? Previously, this kid could enter the Big Dipper array. The group looked ahead suspiciously. The dark red dragon was also stunned when it heard the crowd's conversation. Then it burst into laughter. These people also thought that there must be a terrifying restriction array in the vicinity of the orchard. It seemed that these guys still did not understand what kind of existence Pine Palace was. However, it would not let these people in so easily. It immediately said loudly, "Of course there is a restriction array. It's a very powerful killing array. However, Your Majesty is a Grandmaster Array Master. Of course I can open up a bloody path. As for you all, you won't be able to. If you don't believe me, you can try. I can guarantee that no one below king level will be able to walk in alive." What? So powerful? Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. Even though they didn't really believe it, the other party was in existence that could enter the Big Dipper formation without anyone noticing. If they were to really compete in terms of array formations, it was likely that none of them would be a match for the other party. Therefore, for a moment these people were shocked. When the Crimson Divine Dragon saw that his words had frightened countless warriors, he was laughing in his heart. However, on the surface he pretended to be very calm. But you don't have to worry. If you acknowledge me as your king and become my human pet, I can consider helping you enter. What? You want us to be your lackeys? Why don't you just die? Damn snake, how dare you boast so shamelessly? I'll kill you when I come out. A group of people roared in anger. Who were these people? Most of them were experts from top-notch factions. Moreover, quite a few of them were disciples of king clans. Their identities could be said to be extremely honorable. Yet now, a snake actually wanted to take them in as servants. How could they accept this? However, the Crimson Divine Dragon waved his dragon claws in disdain when he heard this. A bunch of ignorant fools. When I was all-powerful back then, your ancestors weren't even born yet. Being my human pet is definitely a blessing that you've cultivated for 8 lifetimes. Yet you're still complaining about not being willing to do so. Let me tell you, not just anyone can be my human pet. Only 7th Heaven Supremacies, or disciples of king clans, can barely be my human pet. The faces of those 7th Heaven Supremacies and king clans instantly darkened when they heard this. Damn it, this snake was too despicable. It was obviously targeting them. These seniors were so angry that their beards were trembling. Killing intent filled their bodies. They wished that they could immediately charge forward and chop the snake into 108 pieces. However, they didn't dare to do so because these old fellows firmly believed that there was definitely a powerful array formation near the orchard. Therefore, they could only watch the Crimson Divine Dragon hoot and didn't dare to do anything. The Crimson Divine Dragon felt refreshed when it saw those people's darkened faces. At this moment, Lin Xian and the other two in the orchard were almost done with their harvest. Therefore they quickly walked over. Lin Xian glanced indifferently at the cultivators in front of him. Then, he called out to the Crimson Divine Dragon and quickly walked out of the orchard. Everyone was shocked when they saw this scene. In particular, the array masters widened their eyes. They had to see clearly how the other party had broken the array formation. However, they were soon dumbfounded. That was because they realized that Lin Xian and the others didn't break the array formation at all. Instead, they swaggered out. How is this possible? Could it be that there was something profound about their footwork? A group of array masters were quickly analyzing the situation. Lin Xian and Zhao Shui, who hadn't gone far, laughed when they heard this. However, they wouldn't explain anything. Meanwhile, the Crimson Divine Dragon cackled and turned around to look at those people in the distance with disdain. Haha, a bunch of idiots. Take your time to analyze. When the cultivators behind heard this, they were so angry that they vomited blood. Especially the array masters and the older generation figures. Their faces were hideous and terrifying. Damn that snake. I'm an array master. I don't believe I can't break it. That's right. If we join forces, we can definitely break it. The young martial artists looked at each other in dismay as they discussed among themselves. Why do I feel like there's no array formation here at all? I think so too. Look at that Lin Xian. He's just walking normally. He doesn't look like he's breaking the array formation. That's right. Could it be that these elders made a mistake? Although these disciples spoke softly, the soul perception of the older generation figures was extremely sharp. Therefore, they heard everything. Immediately, the faces of these older generation figures darkened. Many of them turned around angrily. No array formation. How is that possible? Kid, today I'll let you know the dangers of being young and ignorant. After saying that, one of the array masters reached out his hand, grabbed a young cultivator, and threw him toward the orchard in front. The others screamed in fright. They didn't expect these array masters to attack them. As for the young cultivator who was thrown, his mind went blank. He even forgot to resist. Plop! The young cultivator fell heavily in the orchard. Chapter 1188. The young warrior got up from the ground and quickly walked a few steps in the forest. Finally, he laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha, I'm fine. I'm not dead. After laughing wildly, he no longer paid attention to those people. Instead, he frantically picked the spirit fruits on the tree. He's fine. When the other young warriors saw this, they were overjoyed. Without caring about anything else, they quickly rushed up. Sure enough, until they entered the orchard and ate the supreme grade spirit fruits, they did not find any trace of danger. Seeing this, the elders and array masters were so angry that they vomited blood and trembled all over. Shameful, too shameful. They even wanted to die. After studying for a long time, they found that this place did not even have a defensive array. It was ridiculous that they acted like seniors and showed off in front of so many disciples. Now that they thought about it, they were really ignorant. Impossible. How is this possible? These are supreme grade spirit fruits. How can there be no defense? The elders and array masters were about to go crazy. This was completely different from what they had imagined. How could they know that the supreme grade spirit fruits in their eyes were just ordinary fruits in Pine Palace? There was no need for a defensive array. The elders were about to go crazy. They did not expect that they would be fooled by a snake. Thinking of this, their faces turned red, and they wanted to find a hole to hide in. Damn reptile, don't let me see you again. Otherwise, I'll cook you and eat you. Yes, and that Lin Xian. How dare he pick so many spirit fruits in front of us? He really deserves to die. The elders and array masters gritted their teeth. However, they could not care less about Lin Xian now. Instead, they ran to the orchard in front of them like the wind. Damn little bastard, leave some for this old man. These people ran into the orchard and frantically snatched the spirit fruits. There were still a few spirit fruits in the orchard, but most of them were picked by Lin Xian and Zhao Shui. They did not care about the rest. However, at this moment, These were rare treasures in the eyes of these people. Lin Xian didn't know that the spirit fruits he left behind would cause such a crazy scramble. At this moment, he and Zhao Shui were heading back towards the Pine Hall. Along the way, he discovered that the spirit fruits that he had seen in the outside world were all over the place. Moreover, this was only the periphery of the Dark Pine Hall. One could imagine how many good things were inside the real Dark Pine Hall. Therefore Lin Xian and Zhao Shui quickly ran. They directly gave up on ordinary treasures, because there were better ones ahead. Of course, if they found any special treasures along the way, they would also take them. In short, the harvest on this trip was far greater than the sum of all the treasures before. Suddenly, an abnormally strong fragrance came from the front. This immediately attracted the attention of Lin Xian and the others, especially the little white monkey. It was so anxious that it was scratching its ears and cheeks. The dark red dragon was even drooling. It smells so good. This is the real good stuff. Lin Xian was also pleasantly surprised because just from this fragrance, he could imagine the spiritual energy contained in it. It was far superior to the spirit fruits outside. Zhao Shui was also very surprised, and there was a trace of excitement in her beautiful eyes. The two of them looked at each other, then quickly moved and ran forward. Not long after, a tall tree appeared in front of them. It was an ancient tree with old branches that looked like a dragon lying down. It seemed to be at least a few thousand years old. What was even more shocking were the leaves and fruits on the tree. Its leaves were silver and shone with silver light, as if they were made of silver. Its fruits were fiery red as if they were burning. The rich fragrance from before was emitted by this ancient tree. This is the silver leaf fire phoenix tree. The dark red dragon looked forward with a serious expression. The silver leaf fire phoenix tree. Hearing this, Lin Xian's pupils constricted and he stared straight ahead. He had received King Pilplume's inheritance and Wine Lord's teachings, so he was very familiar with all the spirit herbs in this world. Therefore, he also knew the legend of the silver leaf fire phoenix. This was an extremely precious ancient tree that was rarely seen even in ancient times. If the silver leaves were picked to make tea, it could increase a warrior's soul power. It was very difficult to increase a warrior's soul power, and there were not many spirit herbs that could increase soul power. This silver leaf fire phoenix fruit was one of them. The red fruit was called the phoenix fruit. It could temper a warrior's body and increase their spirit chi. It could be said to be a very pure source of energy. If the two were used together, it could also increase a warrior's martial soul. Perhaps other spirit fruits could increase soul power and spirit chi. But there were very few things in the world that could increase a martial soul. This silver leaf fire phoenix fruit could do that. Therefore, in ancient times, this was a treasure that countless warriors went crazy for. Hearing Lin Xian's introduction, Zhao Shui was also surprised. She did not expect to see such a precious thing here. However, at this moment, a surprised voice came from behind them. It's the silver leaf fire phoenix tree. Great, we're rich. We're rich. Hearing this voice, Lin Xian's face darkened. He did not expect someone to recognize this ancient tree. Without needing to turn around, several figures had already landed nearby. The person in the lead was the middle-aged man from the Palace of Ares, Duan Tianlang. The warriors behind him were also experts from the Palace of Ares. These people all looked ahead, their hearts burning with excitement. There are hundreds of silver leaves and dozens of fire phoenix fruits. We're really rich this time. Duan Tianlang looked ahead very excited. The ancient tree was very old, and was not as lush as other ordinary trees. There were only a few hundred silver leaves floating in the wind. In the middle of the silver leaves were dozens of fiery red fruits. It sounded very little, but there were many of them. One should know that one could not even find one in the outside world. Duan Tianlang licked his lips, then turned around and stared at Lin Xian. Kid, get lost. This place has been reserved by the Palace of Ares. He naturally did not want to share such good things with others. So his first reaction was to chase Lin Xian and Zhao Shui out. Go to hell. We found this place, so it should be ours. We should be the ones reserving this place. You people from the Palace of Ares, get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. The dark red divine dragon was so angry that he stomped his feet. The silver leaf fire phoenix tree was useful to him, so he would not give it away. Kid, I advise you not to make a mistake. You can't beat us at all. Also, my senior brother and Yanfeng are nearby. When they arrive, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. Duan Tianlang's expression was fierce as he threatened Lin Xian. Brother Duan, don't worry. I'll help you. Chapter 1189. Brother Duan, don't worry. I'll help you. At this moment, another loud laugh was heard. Immediately after, the people from the Divine Bird Palace quickly flew over from afar. They greeted Duan Tianlang, and then stared at the ancient tree in front of them with fiery eyes. Brother Duan, how about you and I join forces to drive this thief away first? The elder of the Divine Bird Palace said in a deep voice. Of course, I've wanted to do that for a long time. Duan Tianlang nodded. The Divine Bird Palace was an ally of the Palace of Ares, so they could share resources. Moreover, the Palace of Ares was not as strong as the Palace of Ares. When the time came to divide the treasures, the Palace of Ares would take the lion's share. Therefore, Duan Tianlang did not refuse the elder of the Divine Bird Palace's decision. The most important thing now was to drive Lin Xian and Zhao Shui out, because the two of them were simply too strange. Previously, in the cave mansion, several sovereign families fought over it, but in the end, they were taken advantage of by these two thieves. This matter made him feel bitter. Therefore, now he had to drive Lin Xian away. Subsequently, the warriors of the Palace of Ares and Divine Bird Palace all stared at Lin Xian with evil intentions. Seeing this, the dark red dragon was furious. He glared back fiercely. As long as the other party dared to attack, he would set up a killing array and fight them to the death. Zhao Shui's expression was also cold, ready to attack at any time. However, Lin Xian looked very calm. I'm standing right here. If you want to attack, come at me. You're courting death. An elder of the Divine Bird Palace roared, then stretched out his palm and quickly grabbed at Lin Xian. That palm was like a lid, covering the sky and the sun, and quickly fell forward. Accompanying it was a terrifying pressure. The violent palm energy was like the roar of 10,000 beasts, causing the whole world to tremble. This palm was very fierce. The elder of the Divine Bird Palace did not hold back. However, Lin Xian remained unmoved. Only when the frightening palm approached did he raise his arm and point a finger. Terrifying sword chi flew out from his fingertips, like thousands of soldiers and horses, with a strong killing intent, quickly soared into the sky. The moment the terrifying sword chi appeared, all the surrounding martial artists felt an indescribable pressure. In the next moment, everyone saw the huge palm being split apart by the terrifying sword chi. Then, Lin Xian stood with his hands behind his back, while the elders of the Divine Bird Palace retreated, their faces full of shock. Damn it, how is this possible? This brat's strength has increased again. The elder of the Divine Bird Palace was terrified. This was because Lin Xian had previously been able to contend against a 7th-level venerable, but he had definitely not been as calm as he was now. Being able to break through the attacks of 7 venerable ones with a casual attack was simply too shocking. 6th heavenly layer venerable, no wonder. Seems like this kid's cultivation base has improved. The elder of Divine Bird Palace gritted his teeth and said. However, on the other side, Duan Tianlang's face was gloomy. This was exactly what he was worried about. Chen Shi had merely advanced by a single realm, yet his cultivation and combat strength had undergone a tremendous change, and this caused him to be unable to help but feel terrified. If you still want to attack, then use your full strength. Don't hold back anymore, Duan Tianlang reminded him. Don't worry, I know what to do. The elder of Divine Bird Palace nodded heavily. Then, a terrifying aura rose from his body. Terrifying spiritual energy surged like a tsunami, making a roaring sound. In the next moment, countless thunder and lightning surged out, and condensed into a divine bird of thunder in front of him. The violent thunder and lightning brought about great destructive power, causing all the martial artists to be terrified. Facing Lin Xian, the elder of Divine Bird Palace finally summoned his martial soul. Thunderbird martial soul? Lin Xian's lips curled into a disdainful smile. If this is all you've got, I advise you to get out of here as soon as possible. Brat, don't be so arrogant. I'll let you know how powerful I am. The elder of Divine Bird Palace snorted coldly, then raised his arm, and an endless amount of spiritual energy poured into his martial soul. In the next moment, the Thunderbird martial soul rushed toward Lin Xian with divine thunder in the sky. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Lin Xian snorted coldly. In his body, an endless amount of purple-white thunder and lightning surged out and condensed into a human-shaped lightning. This human-shaped lightning was purple-white and surrounded by electric light, as if the thunder god was roaring. Following Lin Xian's movement, the human-shaped lightning threw a punch. Suddenly the entire space collapsed. Countless lightning bolts covered the sky, covering the entire sky in an instant. Although they were both thunder martial souls, Lin Xian's thunder and lightning were composed of the 6,000-year-old purple thunder bamboo and the mysterious Yin thunder. Its power was definitely not something that the elder of Divine Bird Palace could resist. Therefore, without any surprise, the Thunderbird martial soul of Divine Bird Red was blown away by the punch. The elder of Divine Bird Palace turned pale and could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. How is this possible? He has actually surpassed me in terms of lightning. The elder's face was full of horror and disbelief. He was the descendant of the three-headed crimson blood bird, and the three-headed crimson blood bird was best at 3 attributes: wind, fire, and thunder. What he cultivated was the thunder attribute. Not only that, but he also condensed the Thunderbird martial soul. It could be said that no one in the same level could beat him in thunder and lightning. However, now a boy in the 6th heaven of the Venerable Realm was not only stronger than him in battle strength, but also in thunder and lightning attainments. He could not believe it. Hearing the elder's question, Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. How can a frog at the bottom of a well know the vastness of the world? That punch just now was a lesson for you. If you want to continue to court death, I can help you. Feeling the killing intent from Lin Xian, the elder of Divine Bird Palace trembled. He did not expect that he would feel fear in the face of a young junior. Although he did not want to believe it, this fear was real. Therefore, although his face was very ugly, he did not dare to make a move again. Since the elder of Divine Bird Palace did not make a move, Duan Tianlang was even more unlikely to make a move. From the battle just now, he had seen Lin Xian's battle strength. Lin Xian was not weaker than him, and was even stronger than him. Therefore, even if he made a move, he was not confident. Taking a deep breath, Duan Tianlang said slowly, "Forget it, ignore this boy. Our target is the ancient tree." As soon as these words came out, all the warriors around were shocked. This was because they could hear the change in Duan Tianlang's attitude. Previously, he was very arrogant and wanted to drive Lin Xian out, but now he had to give in. This was too unbelievable. Could it be that the boy in front of them had grown to such a terrifying extent? Even the elders of the sovereign family had to bow their heads? Thinking of this, everyone looked at Lin Xian with reverence in their eyes. Seeing that the people of Aries Palace and Divine Bird Palace were about to attack the ancient tree in front of them, Lin Xian did not stop them, and even showed a hint of mockery. "Lin Xian, do you want to stop them?" Zhao Shui asked from the side. Chapter 1190. Duan Tianlang heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Lin Xian and the other man did not stop them. Then he regained his confidence again. Although the other party was powerful, there were only two of them. On the other hand, there were two top forces on their side. If they really fought, he could guarantee that the other party would not have any advantage. Therefore, in his opinion, the reason why Lin Xian did not stop them was because they were powerful. He did not even think about the ancient tree. "You guys go up and pick all the silver leaves and spirit fruits," Duan Tianlang and the elders of Divine Bird Palace ordered. Immediately, the young warriors walked out quickly with ecstasy on their faces. So what if Lin Xian was powerful? He could only watch them snatch the spirit fruits. They knew a thing or two about the effects of the spirit fruits. Moreover, there were many of them. If they performed well, they might be able to get some. Thinking of this, the young warriors became even more excited. One by one, they sped up and strode forward. There were even two young cultivators at the 6th level of the Honorable Realm who moved quickly, wanting to grab the spirit fruit before everyone else. However, just as the two warriors approached, the ancient tree in front of them suddenly shook. The branches seemed to have become the sharpest divine spear, and instantly pierced through the two warriors. The attack was so sudden that the two warriors did not even have time to react before they were pierced by the branches. Just as they were about to struggle and resist, a strange power suddenly came from the branches and sucked their flesh and blood essence dry. Plop! Plop! Two sounds were heard. Then two dried corpses that had been sucked dry fell to the ground. This scene shocked everyone. Those warriors who wanted to pick the fruits all stopped in their tracks. Not only that, but everyone had a horrified expression on their faces, as if they had seen a ghost. It could not be helped. This was too terrifying. The ancient tree that they thought was within their reach had launched a fierce attack. In an instant, it had pierced through the two 6th heaven venerables. A one-hit kill, clean and tidy. Behind them, Lin Xian sneered. Just as he had guessed, the spirit fruits were not so easy to pick. But Duan Tianlang and the elder of Divine Bird Palace narrowed their eyes, and their faces changed. The reason why they let their disciples do it was because it was inconvenient for them to do such a thing with their status. But they didn't expect such a thing to happen. Soon, Duan Tianlang recovered from his shock and quickly shouted, "Come back!" In fact, there was no need for him to shout, as those young martial artists had already retreated. They simply did not dare to go up again. When all the warriors retreated to their sides, Duan Tianlang and the elders of Divine Bird Palace quietly breathed a sigh of relief. But very soon, their expressions became very ugly. Judging from the ancient tree's attack, even a 7th level venerate might not be able to safely pluck it. "It seems that we've made a mistake this time." Duan Tianlang took a deep breath, his voice extremely solemn. When he turned around and saw Lin Xian's mocking expression, he was instantly enraged. "Damn it, I was tricked." Judging from the other party's expression, it was as if he knew that there was danger ahead of time. However, The other party didn't say anything and didn't even try to stop them. It was obvious that they were trying to trick them. At the thought of this, Duan Tianlang's expression became extremely ferocious. Kid, don't be so smug. Do you think this can stump us? Let me tell you, the Palace of Ares is much more powerful than you think. Believe it or not, you won't be able to get a single spirit fruit on this tree. Duan Tianlang roared. You don't have to worry about whether I can get the spirit fruit or not. I'm more curious about whether you can get the spirit fruit or not. Lin Xian sneered with his hands behind his back. Don't be so arrogant. I'll open your eyes today. Duan Tianlang snorted coldly, then turned around and stared at the ancient tree in front of him. In the next moment, he let out a low roar and quickly attacked. His tall figure exploded with incomparable energy. A ray of light shone, and a huge hand that covered the sky grabbed forward. It had to be said that Duan Tianlang was indeed powerful. Even among the 7th level venerates, he was extremely powerful. The huge hand formed by spiritual energy directly enveloped the entire ancient tree, and even formed a sealed space, trying to uproot the ancient tree. The ancient tree sensed danger, and all the branches on its body began to tremble. Every branch emitted an incomparable radiance, as if they were spears of the demon god, rapidly piercing into the void. Rumble! There was an intense collision sound. Countless branches turned into sharp spears, and ruthlessly pierced into the huge hand of spiritual energy, creating a loud clanging sound. Then countless holes were pierced into the huge hand of spiritual energy. In the end, it couldn't hold on any longer, and turned into spiritual energy again, dissipating into the sky. The hundreds of spears turned into branches again, and rapidly fell down, drifting with the wind. What? It blocked it. How is this possible? The martial artists behind were stunned. They couldn't believe that an ancient tree could actually block the full attack of a 7th level venerate. Even Duan Tianlang was shocked. He didn't expect his attack to be so easily blocked by the other party. It seemed that the ancient tree was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. At this moment, Lin Xian burst out laughing. Haha, this is so funny. Is this the strength of the Palace of Ares? It's really an eye-opener. Hearing Lin Xian's ridicule, Duan Tianlang's face became extremely ferocious. At this moment, the elder of the Divine Bird Palace strode forward and said in a deep voice, Brother Duan, let me help you. All right. Duan Tianlang nodded heavily, and his eyes lit up again. He ignored Lin Xian and stared at the ancient tree in front of him again. This time, he was going to summon his martial soul and attack with all his might. Duan Tianlang's martial soul was a demonic wolf with green wings. It was very valiant. When the demonic wolf appeared, it immediately exploded with an extremely violent power, as if a peerless beast had awakened. On the other side, the elder of the Divine Bird Palace also summoned his Thunderbird martial soul. The two of them joined forces and quickly attacked forward. This was the attack of two 7th level venerates. Its power was unimaginable. In an instant, a terrifying pressure filled the entire space. If this wasn't the Pine Palace, the entire ground would have collapsed. Even so, the terrifying energy still caused the ground to tremble slightly. The Thunderbird flew, bringing with it unparalleled thunder. Huge thunderbolts quickly descended from the sky and bombarded the surroundings. Even a 7th level venerate would find it difficult to block such an attack. In an instant, countless bolts of lightning blasted towards the ancient tree in front of them. At the same time, the winged demonic wolf also ran with all its might. It opened its mouth and spat out a gray gust of wind. Ordinary mountains and rivers couldn't withstand such a gust of wind. They would probably be turned into ashes in an instant. Chapter 1191. That's great. With the two elders attacking with all their might, we'll definitely be able to take down the ancient tree. That's for sure. I'm afraid only an 8th level venerable can resist such a terrifying attack. Even if the ancient tree is powerful, it's definitely not at this level. Behind them, a group of martial artists and disciples were extremely excited. However, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes with a sneer on his lips. He did not think that the two's attacks would pose any fatal threat to the ancient tree. Sure enough, the ancient tree would not just sit and wait for death. It sensed the threat, and immediately emitted an extremely bright light. The silver leaves in the sky swayed, and immediately formed 9 silver snakes. They danced wildly in the air, and quickly resisted the terrifying lightning bombardment. Meanwhile, the red fruit kept moving and formed phoenixes. They were bathed in flames and quickly rushed toward the earth demon wolf. Countless energy collided, and then smashed apart. The entire space was flooded in an instant. The disciples' expressions changed drastically as they retreated. They could not withstand the impact of the energy at all. However, Lin Xian did not retreat. Countless sword chi rushed out of his body, and quickly destroyed the violent flow and energy aftermath. The air around him was very quiet. There was no trace of energy riot at all. The entire space was filled with violent flows, and was filled with infinite danger. However, Lin Xian's surroundings were terrifyingly quiet. There was no trace of energy riot. When everything vanished into thin air, the martial artists in the distance were stunned. This was because Duan Tianlang and the elder who were fighting the ancient tree were retreating in an extremely embarrassing manner. Both of them had suffered some injuries. What? Did they fail? Seeing this, everyone panicked. If the two experts could not even get the spirit fruit, it would be very difficult for them to do so. Duan Tianlang and the elder from the Divine Bird Palace were even more shocked. They looked ahead in a daze. Then, they shook their heads and sighed as they opened their palms. There was a silver leaf in each of their palms. This was the spoils of war that they had obtained with all their might. However, they did not feel any joy. Instead, they felt a sense of horror. One had to know that both of them were 7th level venerables. Moreover, they were not ordinary 7th level venerables. The two of them were very powerful when they joined forces. However, they only obtained 2 silver leaves, and even suffered some injuries. It had to be said that the tree demon in front of them was too powerful, far beyond their imagination. They even suspected that Lin Xian already knew about this, which was why he didn't stop them. Thinking of this, Duan Tianlang looked back. When he saw the mocking smile on Lin Xian's face, he was even more certain of his suspicions. Damn it, this brat already knew. As expected with that kid's character, how could he not make a move? It turns out that he already knew that the tree demon ahead was very difficult to deal with. The elder of the Divine Bird Palace also had an ugly expression on his face. However, at this moment Lin Xian said slowly, "The performance of the two of you is really unsightly. Dignified 7th level experts and elders of top forces actually only managed to obtain 2 leaves. If I were you, I wouldn't have the face to live in this world. I advise you to find 2 pieces of tofu and knock yourself to death, so that you don't embarrass your family here." What did you say? Brat, you're courting death. Duan Tianlang and the elder of the Divine Bird Palace were furious. Although they did not succeed, they would not allow themselves to be ridiculed like this. What did I say? What I said is the truth. Lin Xian sneered. You want to occupy this place without any ability? You're really boasting shamelessly. Both of you get out of here. Don't delay my attack. Hearing this, Duan Tianlang and the elder of the Divine Bird Palace trembled with anger. Even the disciples' faces darkened. Duan Tianlang roared, and was about to rush up to Lin Xian. However, the elder of the Divine Bird Palace held him back and said coldly, "Brother Duan, don't be rash. That tree demon is so powerful. I'm afraid that only 8th level venerables can contend with it. No matter how powerful that brat is, he can't reach the combat power of an 8th level venerables." Hearing this, Duan Tianlang calmed down. I'd like to see what kind of ability this brat has. How dare he mock us? After saying this, He and the elder of the Divine Bird Palace stepped back and watched coldly. The disciples of the two major forces also sneered. They did not believe that Lin Xian could be stronger than their two elders. Let this brat keep pretending. Let's see how he'll deal with it when he fails. What a joke. Who does he think he is? How dare he try to subdue such a terrifying tree demon? What shameless boasting. Let's see. He'll definitely fail. No one believed that Lin Xian would succeed. Even Zhao Shui looked doubtful. Lin Xian, do you have a way? If we join forces, we should be stronger than the two of them. But I'm afraid we won't be able to take much. But we can still take 5 or 6 portions. Lin Xian smiled and replied, there's no need to join forces for the time being. I have a way. Somehow, seeing Lin Xian smile, Zhao Shui felt relieved. She had seen too many miracles happen to Lin Xian along the way. Therefore, she chose to believe in Lin Xian this time. Brat, can you do it? Do you need me to set up a formation to help you? The dark red divine dragon was also worried. No need. Let me try first. Hearing Lin Xian's words, the dark red divine dragon hurriedly explained. Brat, you must be careful. If I'm not wrong, that ancient tree should be a tree demon. And it's very powerful. I'm afraid it's already at the level of an 8-star demon general. Otherwise, it's impossible that the two of them couldn't even subdue it. From the looks of it now, I'm afraid that only an 8th level venerate can truly subdue that fellow. However, if we join forces, we might be able to take many spirit fruits. However, Lin Xian still shook his head after hearing that. He naturally knew that the ancient tree in front of him was a tree demon. Moreover, it was an extremely powerful tree demon. In terms of combat power, probably no one could compete with it now. However, it was precisely because it was a tree demon that he had a way to subdue it. In the next moment, he took a step forward, looked coldly in front and shouted loudly. I know that you've already activated your spiritual intelligence and can understand what I'm saying. Hand over half of the silver leaves and fruits obediently, and it'll spare your life. What? Hearing that, everyone was stunned. They thought that Lin Xian would attack the tree demon forcefully, but they didn't expect him to threaten it. This brat must have been kicked in the head by a donkey. If such threats were effective, would he still have a chance? Ha ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. I knew he couldn't do it, but I didn't expect him to be so weird as to threaten the tree demon. Chapter 1192. The group of people looked at Lin Xian and laughed maniacally. Duan Tianlang and the elder of the Divine Bird Palace were also puzzled. When they saw Lin Xian's confidence, they thought that he had some powerful killer move. They didn't expect to see such a comical scene. I was wondering what it was. It's just a clown playing to the gallery. The elder of the Divine Bird Palace sneered. An ant is an ant. How can you expect it to create a miracle? Duan Tianlang also sneered. How dare he go against the palace of Ares with this level of skill? He's courting death. Even Zhao Shui and the dark red dragon were dumbfounded. They didn't expect Lin Xian to threaten them. Zhao Shui's mouth twitched slightly. Her expression was very strange. The dark red dragon covered its face with its dragon claws and wailed. Shameful, too shameful. This brat is hopeless. As far as it was concerned, Lin Xian's actions were simply foolish to the extreme. He had specifically warned that the tree demon was very powerful, but it didn't have any effect. Lin Xian's words were too shocking, so everyone was stunned for a moment. However, no one thought that Lin Xian was telling the truth. Many people laughed at him after hearing it. Even the ancient tree in front of him was enraged when it heard this. An unusually violent and terrifying aura was emitted from the ancient tree. Suddenly, the entire space trembled violently. When the warriors in the distance felt this aura, the mocking expression on their faces disappeared. It was replaced by a horrified expression. This aura was too terrifying. It was far beyond what they could withstand. Even Duan Tianlang and the elder of the Divine Bird Palace changed their expressions. Fortunately, they didn't continue to attack. Otherwise, they wouldn't have ended well. This aura made both of them tremble with fear. Haha, this brat is dead. He angered the tree demon in front. I'm afraid that even an 8th level honorable can't withstand this aura, let alone this brat. Let him pretend. He screwed up this time. Even though the disciples were terrified, they were laughing coldly in their hearts. They wanted to see how Lin Xian would be able to create a clone in the face of certain death. However, Lin Xian wasn't worried at all. He looked at the angry tree demon in front of him and sneered. Then, he formed a seal with both hands, and a black ball of light quickly appeared in front of him. The black ball of light flipped and turned into a small black cauldron. That small black cauldron was very simple and unadorned, and there were all kinds of strange beasts carved on it. It gave off a mysterious feeling. The appearance of the black cauldron seemed to have caused the treant in front to feel uneasy. The treant let out an angry roar, and then countless branches turned into divine spears that quickly pierced forward. Immediately, light soared into the sky, shaking space and time. Although they were far away, everyone could feel the terrifying power within the light. Even the eyelids of Duan Tianlang and the elder of Divine Bird Palace twitched violently. Countless divine rainbow-like lights pierced through the void and quickly pierced toward Lin Xian, enveloping him in an instant. However, in the face of such a terrifying attack, Lin Xian's expression didn't change. He only activated the small black cauldron in front of him and shot out a jet black light. Buzz! The small black cauldron emitted a simple and deep sound. This sound seemed to have a magical quality, and it clearly sounded in everyone's hearts. When the treant in front heard this sound, it was as if it had been struck by lightning, and its entire trunk kept shaking. Suddenly, the thousands of mountain-like spear lights disappeared without a trace. What? They disappeared. Seeing this, everyone was stunned. They didn't expect that a sound could make thousands of divine spears disappear. This was too incredible. Not only that, but what shocked them even more was that the ancient tree in front of them was shaking rapidly, as if it had encountered something terrible. Lin Xian held the small black cauldron in his hand and shot out another jet black light into the ancient tree in front of him. Suddenly, the ancient tree in front of them shook even more violently, as if it would collapse at any time. Not only that, but an aged face appeared on the tree trunk. His voice was filled with panic and unease. Stop! Stop! Don't hit me anymore. I admit defeat. What? Admit defeat? The powerful and terrifying treant actually admitted defeat? How is this possible? Everyone was stunned and couldn't believe it. However, what surprised them was yet to come. The treant said again, As long as you stop, I'm willing to hand over half of the leaves and the fire phoenix fruit. Hearing this, everyone's mind went blank, and they were dumbfounded. Especially Duan Tianlang and the elders of the Divine Bird Palace. They were even more stunned. Before this, they had fought so hard, and only managed to get 2 leaves. Now Lin Xian only took out a small black cauldron, and the ancient tree in front of them was willing to hand over half of its leaves and fruits. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. The disciples were even more stunned, as if they were watching a myth. Zhao Shue's beautiful eyes were also wide open. She didn't expect Lin Xian to have such a trick up his sleeve. The dark red divine dragon stared at the black cauldron with a suspicious look on its face. Lin Xian was very satisfied. When he discovered the ancient tree in front of him, he had already started discussing with Zero in his body. In the end, Zero agreed to help, but he wanted some interest, which meant he also wanted some silver leaf liquid and fire phoenix fruit. That was the reason for the previous scene. Okay, Ruffian Long, Xiaobai, you two go and search. Soon, the dark red dragon and the snow-white monkey flew forward like lightning, and then the two of them started collecting the silver leaf and fire phoenix fruit. Seeing this scene, the surrounding martial artists' faces burned with passion. This was an absolute treasure. It was something that could increase the power of one's martial soul. If they missed this opportunity, they might not be able to find it again in the future. Hence, they were unwilling to give up. Finally, an elder of the Palace of Gods of War couldn't help but make a move. Duan Tianlang didn't stop him, because she also wanted to test if she could succeed. If this elder succeeded, she would lead the people of the Palace of Gods of War to attack quickly. However, this elder was only halfway out when he was whipped back by the tree demon in front of him with a branch. The spirit armor on that elder's body was completely shattered, and the flesh around his wound rolled up, revealing his white bones. Just one whip was enough to severely injure a seventh heaven supremacy. This scene made countless martial artists gasp. After seeing the power of the tree demon, those martial artists didn't dare to make a move anymore. They could only watch as Lin Xian and the rest collected the fire phoenix fruit. This scene made them extremely jealous. Soon, the dark red dragon and the snow-white monkey collected half of the fire phoenix fruit. Then, the two of them quickly returned. Seeing that the other party didn't kill them, the tree demon heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 1193. Everyone had a share, but the biggest beneficiary was Ling Xian, followed by the Thousand Beast Cauldron. Zhao Shui, the dark red divine dragon, and the others had also received some. It could be said that the harvest this time was very rich. With these silver leaves and fiery phoenix fruits, the strength of Lin Xian and the others would increase again. The dark red divine dragon would recover a lot of its cultivation, while Lin Xian and Zhao Shui could use this to strengthen the power of their martial souls. Especially Lin Xian, he could revive the Great Dragon Sword Soul again. Once the Great Dragon Sword Soul was revived to the level of a 7th level venerable, his combat strength would greatly increase to a very terrifying level. At that time, even if he encountered a monster at the level of the tree demon, he would not need to use the Thousand Beast Cauldron. He could defeat it with his own strength. Lin Xian and the others were sharing the spiritual fruits, while Duan Tianlang and the people of the Divine Bird Palace in the distance were gnashing their teeth. That was half of the silver leaves and fiery phoenix fruits. If they got it, their cultivation would definitely increase by another level. Therefore, how could they not be jealous? At this moment, they looked at Lin Xian like red-eyed rabbits, staring straight ahead. They could not defeat the ancient tree demon, but this did not mean that they did not dare to attack Lin Xian. The tree demon was an 8-star demon general, and they could not defeat it. However, there were only 2 people on Lin Xian's side, and their strength was comparable to theirs. They had more people on their side, and if they attacked with all their strength, they might be able to defeat the tree demon. Thinking of this, Duan Tianlang was excited. Then, he glanced at the Divine Bird Palace, and saw that their eyes were also red, and he immediately grinned. Needless to say, the other party must have the same idea as him. So when their eyes met, they knew what each other was thinking. Keep some distance, don't get too close to the tree demon, or it will be inconvenient for us to attack. Duan Tianlang quickly instructed. Suddenly, the warriors slowly retreated, but they retreated in a very orderly manner, forming a semicircle, directly blocking all of Lin Xian's escape routes. In other words, no matter which direction Lin Xian fled in, he would encounter them unless he chose not to run. Lin Xian naturally noticed Duan Tianlang's actions and immediately sneered. What? You can't get it yourself, so you want to snatch it from me? Brat, you're too greedy. You actually dared to take half of the spiritual fruits. Duan Tianlang snorted. If you know what's good for you, hand over the spirit fruit and the silver leaf, and I can let you live. Otherwise, this will be your burial ground today. What big words. I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Lin Xian took a step forward, and a terrifying sword-intent soared from his body. Zhao Shue's expression was cold, and 2 rays of cold light shot out from her eyes. She didn't say anything, but her actions showed that she would fight alongside Lin Xian. The dark red divine dragon and the snow-white little monkey were eating spirit fruits while watching the show leisurely. There was no need for them to participate in these battles. Come at me together. None of you is my opponent in a one-on-one fight. Lin Xian's voice was sonorous, and his eyes shone like a sword light. His body exuded a sharp sword aura, and he looked like a sword immortal. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Duan Tianlang snorted, and then said to the elder of Divine Bird Palace beside him, I'll take people to deal with that brat. Divine Bird Palace, take care of that woman. This time don't hold back. Don't worry, I won't let them escape this time. The elder of Divine Bird Palace also revealed a ferocious smile. Duan Tianlang nodded with satisfaction, then waved his hand, and led the powerful venerables in the team to rush forward. In addition to him, there were 4 warriors at the peak of the 6th heaven of the venerable realm. When the 4 of them worked together, their combat strength was not inferior to that of a 7th heaven venerable. As for the other warriors, Duan Tianlang didn't let them go. This was because to deal with Lin Xian, they had to bring out elite warriors. Otherwise, the others would only cause trouble. Although there weren't many people, Duan Tianlang was quite confident, because he had 2 7th heaven venerables on his side. He didn't believe that a 6th heaven of the venerable realm kid could take them on. Although Lin Xian had taken out a small black cauldron to scare the tree demon, in Duan Tianlang's opinion, the small black cauldron only seemed to be effective against demonic beasts. Therefore, Duan Tianlang wasn't that worried. In the next moment, Duan Tianlang roared angrily, and a dazzling light burst out from his eyes. Beside him, the demonic wolf martial soul quickly condensed. With a wave of his hand, the earth demonic wolf roared, and let out a terrifying roar that shook the heavens and earth. Seeing that Duan Tianlang had summoned the demonic wolf martial soul, Lin Xian snorted and quickly summoned his humanoid lightning martial soul. Then, the 2 martial souls quickly exchanged blows in the air, bursting with violent energy. It was deafening, like the sound of thunder in the sea. On the other side, the 4-peak 6th heaven ancient martial art practitioners quickly combined to form a set of array formations and rushed towards Lin Xian. The formation was very mysterious. It was a sword formation, and when combined, it exploded with power that wasn't inferior to that of a 7th heaven venerable. At that moment, Lin Xian was still controlling his martial soul to fight with Duan Tianlang. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have extra energy to deal with the 4-peak martial artists. Zhao Shui, on the other hand, was restrained by the red divine bird, and was unable to lend a helping hand. Therefore, in the eyes of the crowd, Lin Xian was completely in danger. However, Lin Xian's expression was rather calm, and he did not panic at all. Beside him, the 4 different attributes of wind, lightning, metal, and fire rolled quickly and condensed into 4 light swords. The 4 light swords had different auras, but without exception, they were all filled with murderous aura. They were like shocking dragons that made people tremble in fear. As Lin Xian fought with Duan Tianlang, he stretched out his left hand and drew a line in the air. Suddenly, the 4 light swords beside him made a clanging sound and rushed to the sky, slashing forward. The 4 different powers of wind, lightning, metal, and fire exploded quickly, and a powerful force blasted toward the 4 martial artists. Under Lin Xian's control, the 4 light swords exploded with boundless energy. Terrifying sword shadows tore through the sky and slashed the bodies of the 4 martial artists. After one strike, the 4-peak 6th heavenly layer martial artists spat out mouthfuls of blood and flew backwards. The 4 light swords followed like shadows, leaving sword radiance in the air and slashing down again. In just 2 moves, the formation formed by the 4 6th heaven venerables was utterly defeated, and the 4 martial artists were seriously injured. There's no need to send people with such strength. They're meaningless to me. Lin Xian's voice was cold. With a wave of his hand, the 4 light swords were summoned back to his side. The 4 light swords quickly circled around him and formed a sword screen. Brat, you're courting death. When Duan Tianlang saw this, he was mad with anger. He didn't expect the sword formation to be defeated so quickly. Moreover, what shocked him even more was that Lin Xian had maintained a calm demeanor from the beginning to the end of the battle. Chapter 1194. No, I can't let this drag on any longer. Otherwise, his aura will become stronger and stronger. Duan Tianlang's face was gloomy. He knew that the battle was not only a contest of combat power, but also aura. If he allowed his opponent's aura to grow without limit, he would be in danger. Therefore, he decided to use some ultimate skills. In the next moment, Duan Tianlang waved his palm. Mysterious trajectories were drawn in the air. Then 3 shining green Dharma wheels quickly condensed in the air. Following Duan Tianlang's movements, they were like heavenly blades of death that quickly slashed towards Lin Xian. Meanwhile, his left hand merged with the demon wolf martial soul beside him, and he punched out. Suddenly, a destructive force quickly surged forward. Feeling this force, all the martial artists trembled involuntarily. However, their faces were filled with ecstasy. This was because they thought that Lin Xian would definitely not be able to resist such a force. As long as Lin Xian was killed, those things would belong to them. Thinking of this, they all became excited. Facing Duan Tianlang's terrifying attack, Lin Xian stood where he was and did not dodge. However, his eyes were brighter than lightning. He pulled out the Lone Star sword from his back and quickly slashed twice. One sword slashed towards the 3 Dharma wheels in the sky, while the other sword stabbed towards the wolf head fist in front of him. These 2 swords contain the power of the dragon sword soul, and their combat power was extremely strong. Therefore, when the two swords collided, the entire sky exploded violently. The energy was like a raging wave that slapped in all directions and sent all the martial artists in the distance flying. Duan Tianlang bore the brunt of it. Both of his attacks were blasted away by Lin Xian's sword aura, while he himself was also struck by the sword aura and was sent flying. There was a 1-foot-long wound on his abdomen that almost cut him in half. What? How can this be? Duan Tianlang covered the wound on his abdomen in horror and quickly retreated. It was too terrifying. His attack was shattered by two swords, and he was even injured. This was something that he had never encountered before. One must know that even though he was not a peak 7th level Venerable Realm expert, he was still very powerful. Very few people of the same cultivation level could defeat him, let alone defeat him so easily. However, his current opponent was not a peak 7th level martial artist, but a youth whose cultivation was merely at the 6th level. He couldn't help but be terrified. What? Elder Duan is injured? Damn it, I don't believe it. I must be dreaming. How is this possible? Careless. It must be Elder Duan's carelessness that allowed that kid to succeed. In the distance, those martial artists crawled up from the ground. When they saw the injured Elder Duan, they were immediately terrified. However, no matter how much they howled, they could not change the fact in front of them. On the other side, the Elder of Divine Bird Palace saw this scene and felt his scalp tingle. He did not dare to fight anymore and quickly retreated with his people. It couldn't be helped. The scene in front of him was too terrifying. Duan Tianlang was not inferior to him and was even slightly stronger than him. However, at this moment he was injured by two swords. This was simply too shocking. His battle with Zhao Shui wasn't going well either. The woman in white was suppressing him. It wouldn't be long before he would be defeated. Therefore, he had no choice but to retreat. You want to snatch the treasure? You are not qualified. If you don't want to die, scram. Lin Xian shouted coldly, then turned to leave. However, at this moment, another cold voice came from behind. Kid, you are very arrogant. How dare you injure the people of Palace of Ares? If you don't hand over the treasure today, don't leave. This voice was unusually cold and emotionless. It was filled with endless murderous intent. Hearing this voice, Duan Tianlang's originally terrified expression eased a little. The disciples around him also quickly cheered. Senior Brother Yan. That's Senior Brother Yan's voice. Great, Senior Brother Yin Feng is here. That kid is definitely dead. How dare he injure our people? Senior Brother, Yin will not let him go. The disciples of Palace of Ares sneered. When Lin Xian heard the voice from behind, he frowned. He naturally knew that Yin Feng was here. However, so what if he was here? The current him was not afraid of Yin Feng. Therefore, without any hesitation, Lin Xian slashed backward with his sword. The long sword swept across the sky, and a huge sword chi shone brightly. It was like a shocking rainbow as it slashed down fiercely. You are courting death. The voice was furious. He did not expect that Lin Xian would dare to attack. Then the void split open, and a dazzling blade radiance quickly swept across the sky, violently colliding with the sword chi. When the blade and sword collided, a terrifying wave of energy surged out in all directions. Suddenly, the entire void trembled, and terrifying cracks appeared. Kid, you are too arrogant. Today, I will make you pay with your life. Yin Feng's face was cold, and his eyes were like lightning. It was extremely terrifying. You can say that after you succeed. If you want the treasure, bring it on. Facing the famous Yin Feng, Lin Xian did not care. He waved his hand, and his expression was full of fighting spirit. Then, without waiting for Yin Feng to attack, Lin Xian strode forward. He was very fast. In one step, he was in front of Yin Feng, and the Lone Star sword in his hand slashed down fiercely. In his left hand, a sword of thunder quickly condensed and slashed at Yin Feng's waist. In an instant, two sword radiances flashed, and both of them attacked Yin Feng's vital points. Seeing this, Duan Tianlang and the elders of Palace of Divine Bird changed their expressions. Their eyes were filled with fear, because they realized that if they were in Yin Feng's position, they would not be able to dodge these two sword attacks. Thinking of this, they felt a lingering fear, especially Duan Tianlang, whose body could not help but tremble. This was because he realized that Lin Xian did not use his full strength when fighting with him. Otherwise, he would have been a dead man by now. The surrounding warriors were even more nervous. They did not expect that Lin Xian would dare to attack Yin Feng so fiercely. Moreover, he used 2 killing moves in one move. They could not help but worry about Yin Feng. However, Yin Feng's reputation was not undeserved. His strength was far above Duan Tianlang's. Therefore, in the face of these 2 fatal attacks, he was not nervous at all. He waved the long saber in his hand, forming 2 saber radiances, and quickly slashed out diagonally. The saber slashed at the Lone Star sword. As for the hidden sword of thunder at his waist, he chose to throw a punch. In an instant he received Lin Xian's attack. However, Lin Xian's face was calm. He did not have any emotional reaction to these 2 attacks. He knew very well that these 2 attacks would not be able to kill Yin Feng. Otherwise he would not be Yin Feng. Lin Xian did not retreat. Instead, he took another step forward and quickly flew into the distance. At the same time, the long sword in his hand stabbed out again. Chapter 1195. Yin Feng roared as he brandished his long saber. Countless saber shadows danced in the air, blocking all the sword chi. However, the sword chi contained the power of the great dragon sword soul, and was incomparably powerful. Therefore, even if Yin Feng blocked all of them, the terrifying power still caused his long blade to tremble. The entire space was submerged, and countless terrifying cracks spread out. However, he was still extremely powerful, so he managed to neutralize all of Lin Xian's sword chi. Yin Feng was able to block Lin Xian's sword chi. If it were Duan Tianlang and the others, they would have died long ago. However, even though he had neutralized the sword chi, Yin Feng's expression was extremely ugly. Not long ago, he had viewed Lin Xian as an ant. Now Lin Xian was a threat to him. He couldn't calm down. Although he didn't know why Lin Xian was so strong, he felt that the young man in front of him was a strong enemy. He had to get rid of him as soon as possible. Otherwise, things would be difficult to control in the future. Therefore, Yin Feng didn't plan to hold back. Streaks of dazzling saber aura formed on his body, sweeping in all directions. The long saber in his hand also seemed to have become a sharp and unstoppable killing weapon. Countless saber lights were like the waves of the sea. They were strange and terrifying. That's the eight-ocean abyssal saber. Seeing this, the disciples of the Palace of Gods of War exclaimed, "Eight-ocean abyssal saber, that's an Earth-class martial art." Senior brother Yin Feng is serious. It seems that Lin Xian is dead for sure. Seeing Yin Feng use the Earth-class martial art, the eight-ocean abyssal saber, hope rose in everyone's hearts. The eight-ocean abyssal saber was an Earth-class martial art. It was an ultimate martial art of the Palace of Gods of War. It wasn't powerful, but it was difficult to cultivate. However, Yin Feng was talented and had cultivated the eight-ocean abyssal saber to 70% completion at such a young age. Generally, 50% completion was the initial stage, but Yin Feng had cultivated it to 70% completion. He had already surpassed the initial stage and wasn't far from the greater stage. Once the Earth-class martial art was used, its power was immediately revealed. Endless saber lights bloomed, and a terrifying aura enveloped heaven and earth. They quickly slashed towards Lin Xian. This time, there was finally a change in Lin Xian's expression. This was because his opponent's saber technique was simply too powerful. However, he was only moved and wasn't afraid, because he also had Earth-rank martial arts. Moreover, he didn't think that he would lose to his opponent in the usage of Earth-rank martial arts. Therefore, at the next moment, Lin Xian brandished his Lone Star sword and performed the Gale Lightning Sword technique. A firmament sword shadow covered the sky, and a terrifying aura crushed down on everything. Lin Xian slashed out with his long sword, and a bright light illuminated the entire sky. Sword Chi versus Saber Light. Earth Tier Martial Arts versus Earth Tier Martial Arts. The two of them were evenly matched, slaughtering in all directions. In an instant, the entire void was submerged. Terrifying black holes appeared in many places, as if they could devour everything. What? He blocked it. How is this possible? The surrounding disciples were all stunned. They didn't expect Lin Xian to be able to block Yin Feng's Ocean Abyss 8 sabers. This was truly inconceivable. One had to know that Yin Feng was an extremely powerful 7th Heaven Honorable Realm cultivator, and he had an Earth-rank martial arts. Almost no one could resist him. However, his opponent, a 6th Heaven Honorable Realm cultivator, actually blocked it. Damn it, how is this possible? The disciples of the Palace of Gods of War had ugly expressions. Duan Tianlang's expression was also ferocious, because he could also see that Lin Xian's sword technique was also an Earth-rank martial arts. However, this wasn't enough to shock him, because he already knew that Lin Xian had an Earth-rank martial arts. What shocked him was that Lin Xian's comprehension of Earth-rank martial arts was actually not inferior to Yin Feng's. This was truly unbelievable. One had to know that Yin Feng was extremely talented, and he was an extremely dazzling existence among the younger disciples of the Palace of Gods of War. Very few people in the younger generation could compete with Yin Feng. Yin Feng was even more shocked. He originally thought that he would be able to kill his opponent with his Ocean Abyss 8 sabers, but he didn't expect his opponent to block it. Especially those huge swords that soared into the sky. They weren't inferior to his saber technique at all. Damn brat die. Yin Feng roared and swung his saber with all his might. The opponent in front of him was the strangest one he had ever met. So no matter what, he couldn't give his opponent any room to grow. Otherwise, it wouldn't be long before he couldn't suppress his opponent at all. He couldn't allow such a threat to exist. And Lin Xian was someone that the higher-ups of the Palace of Gods of War had ordered to kill. Therefore, no matter what, Yin Feng had to kill him. Brat, I have to admit that you're very strong. But unfortunately, you're definitely going to die. Yin Feng's voice was cold. Ocean Abyss 8 sabers, Dragon King Tsunami. Suddenly, a huge saber light soared into the sky, and a bone-piercing murderous aura spread out between heaven and earth. a terrifying force surged out, causing all the nearby cultivators to tremble. Even the ancient tree put up a layer of defense, so one could imagine how terrifying the saber light was. Gale Lightning Sword, 4 swords shatter heaven and earth. At this critical moment, Lin Xian also used a powerful killing move, and 4 firmament sword shadows quickly descended. In an instant, a terrifying sword chi enveloped the entire space, and countless sword lights swept out in all directions. The entire space was quickly annihilated. The terrifying energy exploded, and it seemed like it was going to devour the entire space. Countless cracks appeared in the void, like a spider web, and it made one's heart tremble. Just as the entire space was about to collapse, a blurry light was emitted from Pine Palace, and a mysterious force quickly protected the entire space. It was only because of this mystical power that the entire space quieted down. Otherwise, under such a terrifying impact, it would definitely have collapsed. Although the entire space had calmed down, the terrifying force was still there, and the surrounding cultivators were all heavily injured from the impact. Yin Feng was even more battered and exhausted. His hair was disheveled, and there were sword wounds on his body. One of them had directly slashed his chest, causing his bones to be exposed, and he had almost been cut in half. Defeated. He had actually been defeated in the final confrontation. This was unbearable for him. He was a peak 7th heaven venerable lord, a peerless genius of the younger generation. His combat strength was unparalleled, and even the older generation could only look up to him. However, at this moment, he had been defeated by a 6th heaven venerable lord. This kind of defeat made him crazy. "Brat, you have completely infuriated me. I will make you pay a painful price." Yin Feng's expression was ferocious like a demon, and the spiritual energy in his body was rapidly twisting. It was obvious that he wanted to use some kind of secret technique. The surrounding cultivators had yet to recover from their shock, and their expressions changed drastically when they saw Yin Feng going all out. However, they could not stop him in time. Lin Xian's face darkened when he saw this. It was obvious that Yin Feng wanted to fight him to the death, but he did not have the time to waste with him. Moreover, he sensed that there were several powerful forces gathering in the distance. Chapter 1196. Yin Feng wanted to fight Lin Xian to the death. However, Lin Xian did not have the time to waste with him. He sensed that there were several powerful forces gathering in his direction. If he did not leave now, he would be besieged. That would be dangerous. "You're no match for me at all. This has already been proven. I don't have time for you. If you want to take revenge, wait until you have a breakthrough in your cultivation." Lin Xian turned to leave. "You want to leave? It's not that easy." Yin Feng went crazy. How could he let Lin Xian leave? He had to defeat Lin Xian in order to vent his anger. He chased after him like a meteor. "You are courting death." Lin Xian was furious when he saw that Yin Feng was not going to let him go. In the next moment, he took out the red lotus boxing glove and put it on his left hand. Then he slammed it behind him. Boom! The sky cracked again, and a huge red palm shadow descended from the sky. It quickly slapped Yin Feng's body and sent him flying. The hard ground had already been shattered. There was a huge palm print on it, and in the middle of the palm print lay an extremely wretched figure. That figure was Yin Feng. At this moment, many of his bones were broken, and he had suffered severe internal injuries. However, this was nothing compared to the mental damage he had suffered. Shock, fear, disbelief, and all kinds of emotions filled his heart. This scene was too shocking. Yin Feng had seriously injured him with a single palm. This was completely beyond his imagination. In fact, he was not the only one. The warriors around him were even more shocked. They knew very well who the person in front of them was. None of them were a match for Yin Feng. However, such a powerful person had been injured by a single palm. This shocked them. Impossible. What was that red palm shadow? How could it be so powerful? Duan Tianlang was terrified. The elders of the Divine Bird Palace were not much better. Thinking of their previous attitude towards Lin Xian, they felt a burst of fear. If Lin Xian had used that thing to deal with them from the beginning, they would have been dead by now. Thinking of this, They looked at the departing figure with faces full of fear. The last palm strike was naturally the power of the red lotus gloves. It wasn't that Lin Xian didn't want to keep using it, but it consumed a lot of energy. If he hadn't been forced into a corner, Lin Xian wouldn't have used this move. However, he was still very satisfied with the effect of this palm strike. Although he had used up a lot of his energy, he had still managed to injure Yin Feng. Without anyone stopping them, Lin Xian called out to Zhao Shui and quickly left the area. Not long after Lin Xian and the others left, several powerful figures quickly descended. Among them was the mysterious expert from the Palace of Ares. He looked at the scene around him and furrowed his brows. The arrival of the mysterious expert allowed the people from the Palace of Ares to heave a sigh of relief. Their expressions eased quite a bit. However, the mysterious venerable master did not pay attention to those ordinary disciples. Instead, he stared at Yin Feng. Then, he took out a pill from his storage ring and gave it to Yin Feng. Yin Feng took the pill and quickly swallowed it. Immediately, the injuries on his body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not long after, he was as good as new. However, his expression was very ugly. The shadow of his defeat was still lingering in his heart. At this moment, the mysterious venerable master said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, we won't let that kid off. Not to mention other things, just that kid's identity is enough to kill him 1,000 times." "I know." Yin Feng nodded silently. "Are you unhappy that you lost to him? Don't worry, we'll attack this tree demon now. After you swallow the fire phoenix and your strength increases, I'll let you deal with that kid personally." Hearing this, Yin Feng's eyes gradually regained their luster. He clenched his fists and his voice was extremely ferocious. "Lin Xian, I'll take revenge for what happened today 100 times over." Lin Xian and Zhao Shui left the ancient tree and found a quiet place to rest. This place was very remote, and there were no precious treasures around. Furthermore, the dark red divine dragon had set up a formation, so it was very safe. Then, Lin Xian sat down cross-legged and began to tidy up the spoils of war. There were actually only two things, the silver leaf and the fire phoenix fruit. Lin Xian had a total of 10 fire phoenix fruits and 50 silver leaves. These were not to be underestimated. They were enough to make an 8th heaven venerable master, and even a 9th heaven venerable master go crazy. However, the martial soul could only be improved when the silver leaf and the fire phoenix fruit were used together. In this way, Lin Xian had a total of 10 silver leaves. As for the extra silver leaves, he did not plan to waste them. This was because these silver leaves could increase one's soul power. They were priceless treasures to him. Lin Xian took a silver leaf and began to cultivate his soul power. Feeling the changes in his soul power, Lin Xian smiled. Then he took out a few more silver leaves and began to cultivate quickly. Half a day later, Lin Xian's soul power broke through and reached the level of a 7th-tier alchemist. Now he could refine 7th-tier pills without the 1,000-beast cauldron. Once he used the 1,000-beast cauldron, he could even refine 8th-tier pills. This was undoubtedly a huge breakthrough for him. One had to know that a 7th-tier alchemist was already very precious, and an 8th-tier alchemist was even rarer. If he could refine an 8th-grade pill, his identity alone would be enough for him to be treated as a guest of honor by countless great forces. After his soul power increased, Lin Xian began to use the silver leaf and the fire phoenix fruit at the same time. This time, he wanted to raise the power of the great dragon sword soul to the 8th heaven venerable master. It had been 3 days since they entered the deep pine hall. In these 3 days, they seemed to have entered a treasure vault. This was because almost every place had natural treasures that were hard to find in the outside world. These people were crazily collecting. They were desperately trying to increase their strength. For a time, even the threat of the heavenly netherbird was reduced by a lot. There were many martial artists gathered near a huge rock, as if they were guarding something. Sitting on the boulder was a young man with a cold expression. If there were others here, they would definitely recognize this young man as Yin Feng from the Palace of Gods of War. Suddenly, a powerful spiritual energy erupted from Yin Feng's body. It was like a volcano erupting in an instant. That berserk power blew those surrounding martial artists, who were guarding all over the place in all directions. The huge rock under his feet turned into powder in an instant. In the next moment, Yanfeng opened his eyes. His gaze was like lightning that pierced through the void. His eyes were filled with ecstasy. He raised his arms and roared into the sky. The sound was so terrifying that it made everyone's ears bleed. Countless clouds in the sky were scattered. The surrounding martial artists quickly sealed their hearing and retreated in fear. This is the power of an eighth heaven venerable master. He broke through. He really broke through. Chapter 1197. 3 days ago, the mysterious supremacy had led them to attack the ancient tree and obtain some silver leaves and fiery wind fruits. As Yanfeng was a genius from the palace of gods of war, he had obtained some. He was already a peak 7th heaven supremacy. With the help of the fiery wind fruits, he had finally broken through to the 8th heaven supremacy. An 8th heaven supremacy could be considered a peerless powerhouse. There were not many of them even in the sovereign clans. Furthermore, every 8th heaven venerate had an extremely honorable status. Even in the king clans, they were all elders who held real power. Moreover, this was especially very true for the last few firmament supremacy. They required extremely powerful energy, one also needed several times more than the previous firmament and a huge amount of resources. For example, even so, those who was already at the peak of the 7th supremacy were already white-haired. It was rare to see someone as young as Yanfeng break through to the 8th heaven supremacy. Cultivation was originally felt the enormous power in his body and immediately revealed an arrogant smile. Peak of the 7th firmament supremacy the next time we meet, it could be said that she had greatly improved. Lin Xian slowly opened his eyes and stopped cultivating. Then a smile appeared on his face. Special cultivator, with a wave of his hand, fight above her cultivation level. Shadow quickly condensed. At this moment, the virtual sky eye behind shadow was more solid than even more solid than before. One could even see the dragon scales on it. It was very strange and mysterious. Not only that, successfully broken but the eye also emitted a power that surpassed the 7th firmament. This breakthrough was very smooth because the silver leaves and fiery chill run down his spine. Were really heaven-defying items. After an incense stick's worth of time, there was no need for Lin Xian to do anything. Her eyes and sighed softly. The pure energy flowed into the great dragon's all the energy in the dragon allowing it to recover quickly. I've
Not
only
only
reached
that,
the peak of the
but his
seventh
cultivation
firmament
had also
supremacy realm.
reached the seventh
I
heaven
haven't broken
supremacy
through
realm.
to the eighth firmament
Now a seventh
supremacy
heaven
realm.
supremacy was no longer
It's all
a
right.
threat to him.
There are many
Even an
treasures
eighth
in the
heaven
Pine
supremacy
Palace.
might
still
not
have
be able
plenty
to
of
defeat him.
opportunities.
This was
Lin
the
Xian
benefit of the
comforted
great
with a
dragon
smile.
sword soul.
Zhao Xue
Its
nodded
powerful
and smiled
combat power
sweetly.
allowed Lin
It's not
Xian to
that
fight
bad.
across realms.
The majority of the
This
energy
made up
I
for his
absorbed
lack of
flowed
age.
into the virtual
One had to know
sky
that it had only
Yes,
been
my
4 to
technique
5
evolved
years
again,
since
and my
Xian
strength
started
increased
cultivating.
greatly.
Compared
Even
to
if
the
I'm
other
facing
geniuses,
an eighth firmament
it could be
supremacy,
said that he had
I can
cultivated
still
for a
fight.
very short time.
Lin Xian was very
However,
confident about
it was
this.
precisely
Although
because
the
of the
virtual
great
sky
dragon
I
sword
wasn't as
spirit
good as his
that
dragon
he was
sword
able
soul.
to contend
It was
against those
still
elders.
very powerful.
Of course,
It should be able
just
to
having
fight
the
against
great
an
dragon
eighth
sword
firmament
soul was not
supremacy.
enough.
After
It
their
also required
cultivation
tenacious
improved,
willpower
the
and
two of them
unlimited
set off
efforts.
again.
This
Fortunately,
time, they
Lin
decided
Xian
that
had
they had
achieved
to
all of
obtain
these
more natural
in a
treasures.
good mood.
This
Lin
way,
Xian
they
stood
could
up
still
and looked
improve their
around.
strength.
Among
When
them,
they
the
thought
dark
of this,
red dragon lay
the
at
two
the
of them
side.
flashed and
He had
quickly
also
flew into
consumed
the
the fiery
distance.
phoenix fruit.
At the same
and
time,
the silver leaf.
the cultivators
His
of the Shen
cultivation
family
had
were
also
gathered
recovered
in
a
a
lot.
palace, reaching the
No,
sixth
this is
firmament
infuriating.
supremacy realm.
I can't take this
Although for
lying
the
down.
dark red divine
I must
dragon's
kill that
previous
brat.
cultivation,
Ninth young master
this kind of
gritted his
improvement
teeth.
could be
The
said
brat
to be
he was
slow.
referring to was
However,
naturally Lin Xian.
it was not
He
discouraged
naturally
because
had
they
no
would soon
enmity
be able
with
to
Lin
fight
Xian.
with the heavenly
However,
netherbird.
Lin
If it
Xian's
could obtain the
relationship with
heavenly
Morong
netherbird
Qingqing
as
was
not
blood.
subtle,
It
this
would
made
be
him
able to
extremely
greatly
jealous.
increase its cultivation.
Therefore, he wanted to kill
Moreover,
Lin Xian by
Lin
all
Xian
means.
had also collected
Young
a lot
master,
of natural
that
treasures.
brat is very strange.
So he could exchange
If we
them
act
for that drop
rashly,
of
we might
dragon
not
blood
succeed.
when he returned
An
to
elder
the academy.
advised.
But
Therefore,
I can't take this
it was
lying
only
down.
a matter of time
Ninth young
before the
master
dark
had
red
naturally
divine
heard
dragon's
of Lin Xian's
cultivation
various
increased.
deeds.
Lin
He
Xian
also knew
shifted
that
his
his
gaze
opponent
away
was
from
very
the dark
difficult
red
to
divine
deal
dragon
with.
and
However,
looked at
it was
Zhao
very
Xue.
difficult
At
for
this
him
moment,
to give up. Zhao Xue
Young
was
master,
sitting
I have an
cross-legged
idea.
like a beautiful
At
fairy.
this moment, a
Her aura
cultivator
had
spoke
become
up.
even stronger.
What idea?
Reaching the peak of the seventh firmament supremacy
Tell
realm.
me quickly.
However,
Ninth young master
it seemed
was
that it would be
overjoyed when he
impossible
heard
for her
this.
to break through
Although
to
we
the
can't
eighth
catch
firmament
that brat
supremacy
immediately,
realm.
we
In
can
fact,
take
this
action
was
from
very
other
normal.
places.
The further
Doesn't
one
that brat often
cultivated,
attack
the
the
harder it
various
was to
major
break
forces?
through. If he attacks Morong Qingqing and snatches the treasures of the Morong family. Before he could finish speaking, the ninth princess was already jumping with joy. This idea was too wonderful. If Lin Xian attacked Morong Qingqing, the relationship between the two of them would definitely break down. However, someone didn't understand. Lin Xian isn't stupid. Why would he attack Morong Qingqing? It's very simple. We can find someone to pretend to be Lin Xian. This way the problem will be solved. Young master, I have mastered a secret skill that allows me to transform into someone else's appearance. It's very difficult for cultivators below the king level to detect me. A seventh heaven supremacy said. Good. Chapter 1198. Jiu Gongzi clapped his hands happily. Don't worry. As long as this matter is completed, I won't mistreat any of you. Thank you, Jiu Gongzi. The group of cultivators rejoiced. They had no choice. Although they were all disciples of the Shen family, there was still a big gap between their status and Jiu Gongzi's. If they could help Jiu Gongzi complete this mission, their status in the family would definitely rise greatly when they returned. Thinking of this, many of them felt excited. The middle-aged man who had spoken earlier also used a secret technique. Immediately, a series of crackling sounds came from his body. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the middle-aged man turned into Lin Xian. His height and appearance were exactly the same. Upon closer inspection, it was impossible to tell the difference. Jiu Gongzi also clapped his hands and cheered. That kid is a swordsman. You must pay attention to that. Also, his cultivation is not high, so you must hide a part of it. However, when you attack, you must display the strength of a seventh heavenly layer. Don't worry, Gongzi. I guarantee that I will complete the mission. After that, the fake Lin Xian laughed nastily. He quickly used his movement technique and ran into the distance. In front of a palace, several elders were rapidly attacking a defensive light screen. Behind these people were many cultivators. Among them was a beautiful woman in a purple dress. Unexpectedly, they could find cold light iron here. What a pleasant surprise. This woman was naturally Morong Qingqing. At this moment, her beautiful eyes were looking at the pieces of metal in the light screen in front of her, and she smiled. The silver-haired granny also smiled at the side. Yes, cold light iron is an excellent material for refining weapons. It is already extinct in the outside world. Unexpectedly, it can be found here. Moreover, from the looks of it, there are quite a lot of them. Looking at the pieces inside, if refined, they can be refined into at least 3.5 Earth-grade treasures. This is a huge fortune for any family. In front, several elders were attacking the light screen with all their might. These elders were very strong. When they worked together, the light screen trembled. The light screen did not last long. Cracking sounds came from it, and it finally shattered like glass. Great! The seal is broken. The disciples of the Morong clan cheered. Morong Qingqing also smiled. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared. He was as fast as lightning as he dashed towards the few pieces of cold light iron. Who is it? You're courting death. The few elders at the front were furious. They didn't expect that someone would dare to take something that belonged to the Morong family. Immediately, many people made their moves. However, that figure was very strange. He actually dodged all the attacks and quickly snatched the 2 pieces of cold light iron. There were a total of 4 pieces of cold light iron on the ground, and at this moment, half of them were gone. This immediately provoked the Morong family members. Damn it! Stay here. An old man was enraged. He reached out with a terrifying hand that covered the entire area. The surrounding warriors also quickly took action. They formed an encirclement to stop that person. The giant hand that covered the sky slammed down mercilessly. It was as if tens of thousands of giant mountains were crashing down from the sky. At the critical moment, that person snorted coldly, and then a dazzling sword light flashed. The dazzling sword chi fiercely chopped down on the huge hand that covered the sky. Immediately, the old man was forced to take a few steps back, and the figure appeared in the sky. What? It's you! When the surrounding people saw the figure, they were all stunned. Even Morong Qingqing was dazed for a second. Lin Xian, why are you here? Morong Qingqing was very surprised. She didn't expect that Lin Xian would attack the Morong family. However, Lin Xian only smiled faintly. Where there are treasures, I will naturally appear. After saying that, he quickly put the 2 pieces of cold light iron into his storage ring. When they saw this scene, the warriors of the Morong family were enraged. Kid, although you helped the Morong family, it's impossible for you to steal our things. If you need these things, you only need to tell us, and we will give you a piece. However, your current actions are really disappointing. Do I need to tell you what I want? Lin Xian snorted coldly. For Morong Qingqing's sake, I won't kill you. Hurry up and get lost. Or don't blame me for being ruthless. Impudent. Good. I want to see what kind of ability you have to dare to go against the Morong family. The group of old men was furious, but Morong Qingqing frowned. She quickly stepped out and stopped the elders, then turned to look at Lin Xian. Are you in some kind of trouble? Tell me and I can help you. Trouble? What kind of trouble? My Lone Star sword needs to be upgraded, and this cold light iron is useful to me. If you want to help me, then give me the remaining 2 pieces. Young miss, don't be fooled by this kid. One look and you can tell that this kid is a greedy guy. That's right. I originally thought that he was a good person, but now it seems that he isn't. The group of people stared at Lin Xian, their eyes burning with anger. On the other hand, Morong Qingqing frowned even tighter, because in her impression, Lin Xian was not this kind of person. She even suspected that this Lin Xian was a fake, but she did not find any flaws, other than his personality. Young miss, don't waste your breath with him. Capture this kid. The few elders bellowed in rage. Then they charged towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian, on the other hand, sneered and moved. Countless beams of sword light slashed out, forcibly carving out a path. Damn it! Damn it! The crowd looked at the escaping figure infuriated. Morong Qingqing frowned. She definitely did not believe that it was Lin Xian. Although she did not believe it, the others believed it without a doubt. Moreover, they all felt a sense of hatred towards Lin Xian. Morong Qingqing's expression turned ugly, because she could sense that someone was trying to sow discord between her and Lin Xian. However, she did not have any evidence at the moment, so she could not convince the others. It seemed that she could only wait until the next time she captured that person, then expose his true identity in front of everyone. Only then would everyone believe her. According to Morong Qingcheng's guess, if someone wanted to destroy her relationship with Lin Xian, they would not only attack once, which meant that that person would come again. Indeed, not long after, when they found another treasure land, that Lin Xian came again. This time, Morong Qingcheng personally attacked as well. However, the other party still managed to escape because he did not fight with her at all, relying on his movement technique to dodge quickly. Of course, this time, the other party stole many good things. This made the members of the Morong family even more furious. When Lin Xian stole from the Morong family for the third time, the members of the Morong family completely exploded, declaring that they would definitely capture that kid. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.